a peaceful town nestled at the base of some mountains. Well, it was peaceful until someone started screaming. In the village square, Sigmul is roughing up an old man while everyone else just stands around and watches. He's demanding to know if there's a female elf in town, claiming his captain wants to have a little chat with her. The old man tries to say he doesn't know anything, but the thug just tosses him onto the pavement like trash. The villagers are terrified. Apparently, this guy is part of a gang of orphans that's been causing all sorts of trouble lately. One of the locals notes that since the world is going to hell, it's no surprise that thugs like this are popping up everywhere. There are even rumors that the Demon King's army has been wiping out noble territories nearby. Back at the confrontation, Sigmul is getting pissed off that the crowd is staring at him like he's some kind of show. Nobody wants to step in, though. They're all just hoping the guards show up before things get worse. Sigmul's done waiting. Since the old man isn't talking, he decides a punch to the face might loosen his tongue. The old man braces for the hit, thinking this is the end. But out of nowhere, a hand reaches out and catches the punch mid-air. Eldmia EGA steps onto the scene, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else but here. The blue-haired kid tells the old man he's got this and turns his attention to the thug. Sigmul is losing his mind. He can't believe some random brat actually blocked his strike. Eldmia mentions he overheard them looking for an elf and asks who the hell they think they are. Instead of being scared, Sigmul just gets a creepy look in his eyes. He figures if the kid is sticking up for the old man, he must know where the elf is hidden. Eldmia doesn't even blink. He tells the thug to take him to his leader if he wants to stay in one piece. That's the final straw for Sigmul. He screams at the kid not to look down on him and swings with everything he's got. The next second, the thug is flat on his back, staring up at the clouds. He's dazed, wondering what the hell just happened. All he saw was a flash of light. Eldmia shakes his hand out, admitting the guy has some decent guts for a bottom-tier thug. He looms over him with a cold stare, asking how much more punishment he can take. Cut to a rundown barn on the outskirts of town. Inside, someone is losing their patience over the missing elf. The thug leader is fuming because his men are taking forever to find one girl. He's regretting not just doing the job himself instead of relying on his useless lackeys. Suddenly, the doors are kicked wide open. Eldmia walks in, dragging the half-conscious Sigmul by the collar. The leader is stunned by the sudden entrance. He looks at the rest of his gang, who are all wondering who this blue-haired kid is. Eldmia drops the thug and sarcastically asks if he's in the wrong place, since the welcome is so cold. Sigmul stammers out that this is definitely the right spot. Eldmia grabs him by the hair, reminding him that a good navigator is supposed to lead you to the destination. The terrified thug points right at the leader, begging Eldmia to believe him. One of the other guys pulls out a knife, laughing at Sigmul for getting wrecked by a child. Eldmia ignores the small fry and keeps his eyes locked on the guy in the chair. The thug leader leans forward with a smirk, asking if he's the brat who lives with the elf. Eldmia cuts the small talk and demands to know why they're looking for his sister. The leader gives him a disgusting grin, explaining they plan to have some fun with her before selling her off for a profit. Eldmia's expression goes cold. He realizes that trying to talk sense into these guys is just a waste of time. He starts to pull the barn door shut, locking himself in with the trash. Inside the barn, the thugs are laughing their heads off. They think they've got the kid cornered. Eldmia isn't trapped with them, though. They're trapped with him. He calmly slides the door shut. With his hand resting on his blade, Eldmia tells the group he's got two very important things to say. One of the thugs points a finger, mocking him. He's convinced the kid is just playing hero with a toy sword. The thug tells him the weapon is wasted on a brat and demands he hand over the elf quietly. Suddenly, the thug's voice catches in his throat. He looks like he's just seen a ghost. With his other hand, Eldmia bends the sword while bolting the door shut. He introduces himself, first. My name is Eldmia EGA. The rest of the gang starts sweating bullets. They realize this kid just bent thick metal like it was made of paper. The thug leader grits his teeth. He can feel the situation sliding out of his control. He screams at his men to stop flinching, claiming the sword must be fake and ordering them to attack. The thugs charge from all sides, brandishing knives and axes. Eldmia doesn't even move. He just watches them come with a bored expression. He thinks to himself that he expected a real challenge, but this is just a sad gathering of small-time crooks. He looks at the younger ones in the group, disappointed that their level is even lower than he thought. Blue energy begins to pulse around his feet as he prepares to end this. In a flash of blue light, he disappears from his spot and lunges straight into the fray. The leader barely has time to register what's happening. Eldmia's goal is simple: take out the head of the snake first. He delivers a devastating punch right to the leader's gut, the impact creating a massive shockwave. The man is sent flying across the room, his eyes rolling back in his head. The sheer force of the blow kicks up a massive cloud of dust and debris. The remaining thugs are frozen in place, staring at the destruction in pure disbelief. One of the girls in the gang watches in horror as their captain is wiped out in a single heartbeat. Eldmia stands over the unconscious leader, his fist still smoking. Second. Remember this one thing. He crosses his arms, looking completely unbothered by the fight. With a predatory grin, he tells them never to make him angry again. They seem to get the message. Cut to a peaceful cabin in the mountains at sunset. A voice sighs, "Good grief." Inside, a beautiful elf woman named Asilia Enderinia is waiting. She's already scolding Eldmia for getting into another fight. She stands in the kitchen, asking if the thugs weren't even worth his time. She looks him in the eye, calling him Eldy with a worried but firm expression. Eldmia just laughs it off, while she keeps lecturing him about staying out of trouble. He sighs, explaining that those guys were talking trash about her. As her brother, he wasn't about to just stand by. Asilia can't help but sigh too. He's only 11, but he talks like he's seen it all. She starts serving dinner, though she still wishes he'd try something other than violence once in a while. She asks what took him so long, since she expected him to finish the job in an instant. Flashback to the barn. Eldmia is sitting on a crate, looking down at the thugs who are now bowing before him. He realizes they aren't war orphans at all, just a bunch of runaways causing trouble. They beg for mercy, promising to go home. He leans against the doorframe and tells them to get lost. They don't need to be told twice. Then he turns to another group of kids who are still lingering in the barn. They look absolutely miserable. They tell him they don't have a home to go back to. Eldmia stops and takes a closer look. He realizes these ones are the real deal. He scratches the back of his head, letting out a frustrated sigh. This is a problem he can't just punch away. Asilia listens patiently as Eldmia explains that he got held up looking for a safe place for the orphans to stay. Eldmia stares into his soup, admitting that seeing children without a home or family felt far too personal. He tells her that since he was given a chance at a new life, he wanted to pay it forward to those kids. He rubs the back of his head with a sheepish grin, finding it a bit embarrassing to admit his feelings out loud. Asilia is overcome with pride and tackles her little brother in a massive, affectionate hug. Later, they both lie on the floor of their home, reflecting on the 3 years that have passed since they first met. Asilia looks up at the ceiling with a peaceful smile, remarking that their life now feels almost like a dream. Eldmia stares upward with a more serious expression, wondering what would have become of them if they hadn't met that day. He slowly closes his eyes, letting his mind drift back to the memories of their first encounter. The memory begins with a village consumed by flames under a blood-red sunset. A much younger Eldmia, his face streaked with tears and sweat, grips a sword that is far too heavy for him. Nearby, Asilia is shackled and bound, her expression one of utter despair. The heavy iron blade clatters into the dirt as the young boy's strength finally fails him. He collapses to his knees, a pained groan escaping his lips as he faces the destruction of his home. Asilia can only watch in silence, her own hands bound by cold iron. 3 years ago. That day. I lost everything. The weight of the tragedy settles over the memory. Asilia's bare feet stumble over the wreckage of the burning village as she tries to find a way to escape. She gasps for breath, her eyes darting around in panic as she hears the shouts of her pursuers. A group of heavily armed thugs swarms the area, their faces twisted with greed and cruelty. One of the men kicks open a door, his curved blade held ready as he searches for the fleeing elf. The thug leader, a muscular man with a thick reddish-brown beard and shaggy hair, bellows orders to his men. In the shadows, young Eldmia stands paralyzed by grief, his head hanging low. He holds a silver locket open, staring at the portrait of a woman who was clearly precious to him. With a surge of hopeless rage, he tears the necklace from his neck, the chain snapping under his grip. The thug leader towers over him, cruelly telling the boy that if he's going to die anyway, he should at least be useful. The leader is incensed, shouting that the elf can't have gone far with the restraint collar preventing her from using magic. Asilia huddles against a stone wall, her heart hammering in her chest as the collar begins to glow with a faint blue light. She knows she needs to find a place to hide before they spot her in the open. She bursts through the doorway of a nearby house, her shackled hands raised in a desperate effort to move faster. Leaning against the wall, she tries to catch her breath, hoping against hope that she has bought herself a few moments of safety. Her eyes widen in shock as she hears a small gasp from within the darkened room. She finds herself staring at young Eldmia, who is standing in the middle of the room, looking utterly terrified. The boy's face is pale with fear as he looks at the shackled woman who has just invaded his hiding spot. Outside, the thug leader holds up a glowing blue orb, his face twisted in a snarl of frustration. He activates the magical device, and Acilia's breath is stolen away as the restraint collar begins to hum. She lets out a harrowing scream as a powerful magical shock surges through her body, bringing her to her knees. One of the thugs points triumphantly toward the house, shouting that he's found their target. Acilia collapses to the floor, gasping for air as her strength leaves her. The thug leader leads his men toward the house, ordering them to gather up the merchandise and anything else of value. As she hears them approaching, Acilia's only thought is for the safety of the small child she found. She had quickly shoved young Eldmia into a wooden cupboard, hiding him just seconds before the thugs burst in. The thugs stop at the entrance of the house, their attention caught by a faint sound from within. The thugs enter the house, surprised to find a young boy hiding in the same room as the elf they were hunting. Young Eldmia stares up at them, trembling with fear as cold sweat pours down his face. Acilia, still in the hands of her captors, is horrified to see the boy has been discovered. The thug leader decides that a survivor of the village raid is a valuable prize and orders his men to take the boy as well. The leader draws his sword and looms over Eldmia, mockingly telling the child that his luck has finally run out. With tears streaming down his face, the boy insists that he cannot leave because his parents are still in the village. The thugs burst into cruel laughter, mocking the child for his naive hope in the middle of a massacre. The thug Longhaird's expression turns sinister as he decides to crush the boy's remaining spirit. He points out the devastation outside, explaining that the Demon King's army has already wiped out the entire village. Eldmia is paralyzed by shock as the horrific reality of his situation begins to sink in. The Longhaired coldly informs him that his parents are gone and that from now on, the thugs are his masters. Just as the Longhaired moves to seize the boy, a sudden flash of blue light erupts from the ground. The light envelopes Eldmia, who stares down at the sudden phenomenon with wide, confused eyes. In an instant, blood sprays across the room as one of the thugs collapses, struck by an invisible force. The remaining thugs scramble back in a panic, shouting for their comrades to grab their weapons. Eldmia looks up, his gaze now unervingly sharp as a mysterious energy radiates from him. A large sword tip is embedded in the ground, vibrating with a strange and ominous power. The boy grips the hilt of the sword, his teeth bared in fear as he feels the weapon moving of its own accord. The thugs hesitate, their bravado vanishing as they see the incredible power emanating from the child. They begin to realize the sword might be a legendary demon sword left behind by the army that destroyed the village. The thug leader's greed quickly outweighs his fear as he considers the fortune a demon sword would bring. He forces his subordinates forward, threatening them with death if they fail to seize the weapon from the boy. Terrified of their leader, the men prepare for a desperate assault, their faces pale with dread. With a chorus of frightened cries, the thugs charge at Eldmia, their weapons raised to kill. Acilia Endorinia screamed, telling the boy to run while she struggled against her shackles. The bandit laughed, swinging his axe with a greedy look in his eyes. He was convinced that once he seized the legendary demon sword, it would be game over. He freezes, his confident smirk disappearing as something fast streaks past. A young Eldmia ega tears through the air, his blade glowing with a fierce light. The boy is a blur of motion, carving through the bandits before they can even process what's happening. His eyes are cold, focused only on the kill as the demon sword hums in his hand. The leader starts to sweat, wondering what kind of monster he's actually dealing with. Eldmia doesn't give them a chance to breathe, dropping another bandit in a spray of blood. Acilia watches in disbelief, her eyes wide as she realizes that sword isn't what it seems. Eldmia stops, standing among the rubble as the leader yells at him to stay put. The bandit leader grabs Acilia, pressing a sword to her throat and threatening to take her head off if Eldmia moves. Acilia tries to warn the leader, but he tells her to shut up. He thinks he's got the upper hand, justifying his cruelty by calling her merchandise. Behind his grin, he's already planning to kill the kid the moment that sword is in his hands. Eldmia just looks down, his face hidden in shadow as he listens to the man's demands. He slowly reaches out, his hand open as if he's about to surrender his weapon. He tosses the sword into the air, catching the bandit completely off guard. He shoves Acilia aside, his focus entirely on the weapon as it flies through the air. He lunges forward, his feet barely touching the ground in his rush. He dives for the blade, greed written all over his face. But the sword did nothing, and Eldmia struck him down with the bandit's own blade, which he had picked up from the ground. The boy sits among the bodies of the bandits he just slaughtered, the demon sword lying useless on the ground. He takes a long, shaky breath. Eldmia screams at the sky, cursing the army and the bandits who ruined his home. Acelia just stares, terrified and confused by the boy who just saved her life. He looks at her and admits the whole thing was a lie. There was never any demon sword. He had simply used his pure skill to make them believe the weapon was enchanted. He used their own greed and fear to distract them long enough to secure the win. Eldmia pulls a real sword from one of the dead bandits, showing just how far his judgment goes. He looks small sitting there in the ruins, but his eyes say he's seen too much for an 8-year-old. Acelia walks closer, asking why a child like him would even bother saving her. He looks away, bluntly telling her that saving her wasn't his intention. This was his home, and he simply couldn't stand by and watch bandits tear it apart. Then he shifts the focus, correctly guessing that she's a mage. He watches the smoke rise from the village, his expression hardening. Acelia looks down, confirming his suspicion. A small, chilling smile crosses his face as he mutters that maybe gods really do exist. He pulls out a glowing blue orb and holds it out toward her. Her eyes go wide as she recognizes the mana suppression key. Eldmia makes her an offer, her freedom in exchange for her protection for the next 8 years. He asks her straight up if she'll stay with him until he's grown. Surrounded by the corpses of his neighbors, he realizes he has no one else left to rely on. Even after losing everything, young Eldmia EGA knew he couldn't stay in the destroyed village with winter fast approaching. He held on to his hope, whispering to himself that no matter what happened, he wanted to live. Back in the present, a villager snaps Eldmia out of his thoughts by shouting his name. The man surprises him with a friendly grab, asking why he's spacing out. He mentions he heard all about the fight Eldmia had with the orphan gang earlier. He saw the whole thing and was impressed by how Eldmia took them down with a single hit. Eldmia doesn't really see it as a compliment, but the man is just glad the village is finally peaceful. He holds out a bright red apple, catching Eldmia off guard. He offers it as a thank you gift for cleaning up the streets. A shopkeeper yells in the background about giving away stock without permission, but the villager just shrugs it off. Eldmia can't help but let a small smile slip as he looks at the fruit. The moment is cut short when someone screams out his name in pure desperation. A young villager comes running up, looking like he's seen a ghost. He is one of the orphans, and he demands that Eldmia follow him immediately. Eldmia immediately realizes something is wrong and asks if something happened. He gasped out that some suspicious-looking people had just tried to kidnap the kids. At the mention of a kidnapping, Eldmia's expression turns deadly. Memories of his home burning and the screams of his people start to flood back. He remembers that day 3 years ago like it was yesterday, and the pain is still just as sharp. He recalls the silhouette of a man and the feeling of being completely helpless as everything was taken. Ogwen had become his second chance at a home after he lost everything. More importantly, it's where Acelia and Dorinia, the person most precious to him, now lives. He clenches his fist so hard his knuckles turn white, promising himself he won't let history repeat itself. His voice drops to a cold, dangerous tone as he asks exactly where these people are. Deep in an alley, the silver-haired hooded agent is already losing his patience with the brat, who interrupted them. Eldmia walks right up to them, noting that they've got quite the nerve coming to this village for a kidnapping. He stares the man down, his aura making it clear he's not just some random kid. He's already made short work of the agent's thugs, who are now lying unconscious in the dirt. The hooded agent sighs, disappointed that he had to rely on such useless lowlifes. Eldmia makes it clear that since he's the one who looked after Revi, any attack on her is an attack on him. He extends a hand, inviting the man to try and defeat him if he really wants the girl. The agent doesn't hesitate, drawing his blade with a snarl. He lunges forward, but Eldmia is already moving, blocking the strike with ease. The man's eyes widen in shock as he realizes his attack was completely neutralized by a child. Before he can recover, Eldmia winds up a punch and strikes. But it's a feint. He throws a handful of sand directly into the agent's face. Blinded, the agent staggers back, clutching his face in agony. He curses, unable to see his opponent through the grit and dust. Eldmia doesn't give him a second to recover, delivering a crushing kick to his stomach. The force sends the hooded agent skidding across the ground like a ragdoll. Eldmia looks down at him, unimpressed, noting that for someone who's not an ordinary kidnapper, he's pretty pathetic. The agent glares up through his silver hair, his face twisted in a mask of pure rage. His eyes wide with murderous intent, he makes it clear that he's not planning on letting this kid walk away alive. Just as he's about to strike back, the sound of an approaching crowd catches his attention. Villagers and the innkeeper, Alicia, come running toward the noise to investigate the commotion. Realizing he's outnumbered, the silver-haired leader pulls out a smoke bomb to cover his retreat. A thick cloud of gray smoke erupts, filling the street and causing everyone to scramble in confusion. Eldmia coughs through the haze as the villagers rush to check if he's hurt. By the time the air clears, the main target has vanished into thin air, leaving only his lackeys behind. Our protagonist turns his attention to one of the thugs left crawling in the dirt, abandoned by his boss. With a terrifying glow in his eyes, he cracks his knuckles and prepares to get some real answers. The thug immediately cracks, begging for mercy while admitting they were looking for a specific target. A mention of a noble girl completely catches the boy off guard. Apparently, there's a rumor that a lady from a destroyed noble house is hiding out nearby with a massive bounty on her head. Eldmia doesn't care about fairy tales, he wants to know who the silver-haired guy was. After seeing the guy's pathetic state, the blue-haired teen realizes he's probably telling the truth about being a pawn. He doesn't let them off easy, though, tying them up securely to be dealt with by the guards later. Once the mess is handled, Eldmia checks on Revi to make sure she's okay. The girl seems fine, but the thought of professional kidnappers stalking the village has her on edge. He tells her to head back to the inn and try to get some rest. Revi lingers for a moment, her expression unreadable as she stares at the ground in silence. Later, our hero walks into the inn and stops dead in his tracks, wondering if he's in the right building. The place is transformed, filled with decorations and more customers than he's ever seen at this hour. The regulars crowd around Revi, relieved to hear that she's safe after the earlier commotion. A local kid pulls at her sleeve, desperately asking for help because they're suddenly short-handed. The orange-haired girl doesn't skip a beat, efficiently delegating tasks and organizing the staff. Alicia spots the protagonist and greets him with a wide, happy grin. The innkeeper gives him a playful nudge, thanking him for taking out the trash and keeping the village safe. The woman admits she's impressed with how well the new kids are working, bringing a fresh energy to the place. Eldmia tries to give her the credit, but she shakes her head and laughs. Confused, he asks who's actually responsible for the sudden success of the business. Alicia points over to Revi, explaining how the girl took charge and got everyone motivated. She reveals that the teenager even redid the menu and fixed the accounting books. That detail sticks in the boy's mind. It's strange for a common village girl to know high-level bookkeeping. He asks if she can really read and write, and the older woman confirms it. In fact, her grammar and handwriting are so refined they'd put most scholars to shame. The pieces start falling into place as Eldmia remembers the thug's story about the missing noble lady. Revi continues her work, unaware that her secret might have just been blown. Without a word, the boy marches over and grabs her by the shoulder, startling her out of her routine. Eldmia asks Revi if she has any idea who that robed guy actually was. Revi is completely flustered, telling him to just let go of her for a second. Without answering, the boy pulls her along, demanding she come with him. The orange-haired girl is caught off guard by his sudden intensity. She struggles to keep up as he drags her toward a private room. A heavy wooden door slams shut behind them, cutting them off from the rest of the inn. Revi's heart starts racing. She can't tell if it's fear or something else entirely. She notices a strange, cold energy coming from the teen, just like during the fight. Despite her panic, she can't help thinking he actually looked a bit cool back there. She quickly shakes the thought out of her head as Eldmia calls out her name. The girl begs him for a moment to think, admitting she's not mentally prepared for whatever is coming. He looks at her with genuine confusion, explaining he just has one simple question. Eldmia gets right to the point, asking if she's the missing noble lady everyone is talking about. Revi freezes up as he repeats the rumor he heard from the thugs earlier. He recalls the groveling bandit mentioning a high-reward target from a fallen house. Eldmia explains that this rumor is the only thing that makes sense of why they're after her. The girl tries to play it off as a coincidence, but he isn't buying it for a second. She starts sweating under his sharp gaze, realizing her secret might be out. Our protagonist points out her suspiciously advanced skills in bookkeeping and paperwork. He notes that no ordinary orphan would have that kind of education without a noble upbringing. Revi looks away, unable to come up with a convincing lie to save herself. The blue-haired boy says he needs the full story if he's going to keep her safe. He warns her that if they don't deal with this now, the kidnappers will just keep coming. She apologizes but insists she still can't talk about it, so he decides not to push her any further. When she asks what he's planning, the look in his eyes changes completely. He plans to track the assassins to their forest hideout and wipe them out once and for all. Revi is horrified, asking if he really thinks he can take them all on by himself. Eldmia tells her to just stay put at the inn while he handles the heavy lifting. He knows that the guys he beat up earlier were just the tip of the iceberg for this organization. The boy refuses to let scumbags target his friends in broad daylight without a response. Revi hangs her head and blames herself for dragging him into her mess. He reaches out and gently pats her head, telling her to stop with the self-pity. Eldmia makes it clear that the only ones to blame are the bastards doing the kidnapping. He gives her a reassuring look, telling her not to lose any sleep over it. With a determined grip, he prepares himself for the upcoming fight. He shoots her a confident smirk, promising that he's way stronger than he looks. Under the glow of a full moon, the scene shifts to the dark woods outside the village. The silver-haired leader from earlier is back at camp, nursing his wounded pride by the fire. A burly thug tells him to pipe down, since the mission was technically a success anyway. The agent is absolutely fuming, vowing to rip that brat apart for blinding him with sand. The man tells him to stay put as per Delta's orders so they don't blow the whole plan. But the silver-haired assassin isn't in the mood for lectures, looking down on the others as beneath him. At the forest camp, the thug leader and his men are alerted by a sudden rustling in the dark. They reach for their weapons when the command to investigate the noise is given. One of the bandits cautiously steps into the brush, wondering what's lurking in the shadows. The man reports back that it's probably just an animal, but his boss isn't convinced. Before he can argue, Eldmia erupts from the foliage like a blue streak of lightning. The boy's sword cuts through the first guard before the man can even register his presence. Another bandit is splattered with his comrade's blood, his face twisting into a mask of pure terror. Blue magic swirls around Eldmia, his eyes glowing with an intensity that feels entirely inhuman. The hooded agent grits his teeth in fury, realizing that the brat actually tracked them down. He screams for his remaining men to kill the intruder, desperate to end the threat immediately. Eldmia doesn't give them a chance to coordinate, moving with speed that defies the laws of nature. He strikes down another thug with a single, precise blow, his face remaining eerily calm. The camp becomes a blur of steel and blood as the young protagonist carves his way through the ranks. Every movement Eldmia makes is calculated and lethal, showing the experience of a much older warrior. He unleashes a glowing arc of energy, putting all his strength into a finishing blow. One more assassin falls to the ground, cursing his luck as the boy continues his rampage. Eldmia stands amidst the chaos, his blade humming with the power of unrefined magic. He moves like a whirlwind, taking down two enemies at once in a display of overwhelming skill. The hooded agent watches in disbelief, sweat pouring down his face as he realizes he's outmatched. Eldmia stops for a moment, mocking the man for running away like a coward earlier that day. The silver-haired assassin draws his own sword, vowing to shut the boy's mouth for good. Their blades clash with a violent shockwave, the sheer pressure of Eldmia's power shaking the ground. The agent's eyes widen in realization as he feels a terrifying sensation coming from the boy. He can hardly believe his senses. This level of raw magic power shouldn't be possible for a human. He knows that mages must painstakingly refine their magic into mana to cast even simple spells, and even the strongest knights have to convert their power into aura just to strengthen their bodies. The hooded agent is paralyzed by the impossibility of the teen standing right in front of him. Eldmia raises his sword, a cold smirk playing on his lips as he prepares his final move. He explains that unlike the people of this world, he can use raw magic power without any refinement. A massive explosion of blue energy blasts the hooded agent back, shattering his defense. The boy is on him in an instant, not giving his enemy a single second to recover or escape. He stands over the broken assassin, admitting the man had guts even if he was hopelessly weak. Dismissing the fallen leader, Eldmia turns his attention to the last man standing in the camp. A bandit wearing goggles cowers against a wooden wagon, trembling so hard he can barely breathe. Eldmia grabs the terrified man by his collar, hauling him up to look him dead in the eye. He demands the name of the mastermind behind the kidnapping, his voice dripping with cold menace. He tells the man to hurry up, noting that his sister will be furious if he returns home too late. Suddenly, a deafening roar shakes the forest as a massive red wyvern descends upon the camp. The beast's arrival is so sudden that even Eldmia is forced to jump back to avoid its snapping jaws. The wyvern's eyes glow with a predatory light as it lets out a shriek that echoes through the trees. But he simply dispatches the giant beast with a single hilt strike, and the dragon immediately lies unconscious next to the bandit. Eldmia sheathes his sword, still thrilled from having faced a legendary beast for the first time. A thought flashes through his mind. A red wyvern takes to the sky, its wings beating powerfully against the night air as it carries a mysterious rider. Eldmia watches from below, realizing that the people behind this are far more than just common criminals. His eyes narrow with a cold, sharp focus as he begins to connect the pieces of their plan. He notices another carriage abandoned in the clearing, a sign that they had prepared for a much larger transport. Without hesitation, Eldmia presses his blade against the throat of the bandit he just captured. He demands the location of the other wyvern, giving the man a chilling choice: speak or die. The bandit stammers in fear, revealing that their captain, a knight named Delta, has already flown away on it. Eldmia realizes with a surge of frustration that he has been outplayed by his enemies. He sees now that the entire camp was just a trap meant to delay him while the real target was taken. Miles away, Revi lies limp across the back of the soaring beast, her freckled face pale and still. She is being carried by the knight Delta, who looks down at the landscape far below with a detached gaze. Delta, a scarred and stern man, shows no emotion as he carries out his mission for the kingdom. Revi slowly regains consciousness, her head swimming as she wonders where she has been taken. Her eyes widen in shock as she looks past the knight's shoulder and sees nothing but the open sky. The wyvern glides through the upper atmosphere, moving with a speed that makes any pursuit impossible. Revi cries out in terror, realizing she is trapped on the back of a legendary creature high above the ground. She recognizes the knight's armor and demands to know how the Spear of the Kingdom could stoop so low. Delta remains cold, stating that they will go to any lengths required to return her to her proper place. He warns her to behave, noting that falling from this height would be a very messy end for her. Far below them, the world looks like a tiny map, emphasizing just how helpless Revi is in this moment. Revi desperately claims that the people in her village will notice she's gone and come to save her. The knight scoffs, telling her that nobody from that village will ever be coming for her. A wave of dread washes over Revi as she asks what he could possibly mean by those words. Delta reveals that they burned the village to the ground and left no survivors to ensure their tracks were covered. Revi cries out that Eldmia is coming to save her. Delta just scoffs, asking what on earth she's talking about. He boasts that he still has an entire group of elite henchmen waiting in the forest. He's convinced that Eldmia is just a child who can't possibly win against all of them. Shaken by the knight's words, Revi immediately envisions a grim scenario. The image of Eldmia flashes through her mind, meeting a grim fate. High above the clouds, Revi trembles as she's held captive on the flying beast. Delta tells her she'll forget her commoner friends soon, as she'll never see them again. Suddenly, a massive explosion of light shatters the night sky. Delta is blinded by the glare, his eyes wide with confusion. Out of nowhere, Eldmia drops from the heavens like a falling star. He brandishes his sword, eyes glowing with an intense blue light. He drives his blade deep into the wyvern's skull, unleashing a spray of blood. Delta is stunned the kid managed to get so high above them. He stares in horror as his mount is crippled by a single, devastating strike. Eldmia leaps away from the dying creature as it starts to plummet. Delta quickly draws his own blade, clashing with the boy midair. The impact sends out a massive shockwave that rattles the night. They trade blows while falling through the pitch-black sky. Delta can't believe how reckless the boy is being. He wonders if the kid is trying to kill them all instead of saving the girl. He's shocked Eldmia actually jumped from such a high altitude. The knight begins to suspect that Eldmia isn't working alone. He realizes someone from his own side must have betrayed them. Delta's face contorts with rage as he prepares to end the fight. He unleashes a torrential wave of purple aura, slashing through the air. Eldmia is caught in the energy storm, struggling to hold on. Delta boasts that his years of combat experience outclass the boy's raw power. Determined, Eldmia surges forward, his own magic flaring up. The knight swings his glowing purple sword for a final, lethal blow. But Eldmia releases a blinding flash of light, activating the sunrise. Delta is completely blinded by the sudden radiance. He realizes too late the boy's head-on charge was just a distraction. In the confusion, Eldmia slices through the knight's defense. Revi gasps as she's finally snatched out of harm's way. Eldmia holds her close as they tumble together through the clouds. They both fell straight down onto the wyvern, just as the pilot caught them in time. The goggle thug celebrates, relieved that the risky plan actually worked. Revi clings to her savior, whispering a shaky thank you. But then she notices a large patch of blood spreading across his side. Eldmia realizes Delta managed to score a hit in that split second. His strength finally gives out, and he slumps into Revi's arms. The memory of Revi calling his name echoes as the sun rises over the horizon. Eldmia slowly wakes up in his own bed, confused about where he is. He stares at the ceiling, his mind still a bit hazy after the fight. He looks down and sees Acelia fast asleep by his side, her hand still resting on his. Sensing movement, his sister starts to blink her eyes open. The second she sees him awake, she nearly jumps out of her skin with relief. She immediately goes into big sister mode, yelling at him for being so reckless. But the anger doesn't last long before she pulls him into a tearful hug. Eldmia gives her a weak smile and apologizes for making her worry so much. Acelia tells him he wasn't the only one, mentioning that Revi has been visiting every day. Right then, Revi walks into the room, now dressed in expensive-looking noble gear. Eldmia is relieved to see her safe, but she looks like she's about to burst into tears. Instead of a hug, she starts jokingly pummeling him for staying unconscious for 3 days. He laughs it off, telling her that she should probably thank him first. He notices her new outfit and asks if she's finally met up with her people. Revi gives a playful smirk, looking every bit the noble she was born to be. She then gets serious, telling him there's something they need to talk about. She reaches out and firmly grasps his hand. With a hopeful expression, she asks if he'll come with her to the royal capital. Eldmia isn't interested. Revi tries to get him to at least sleep on the idea, but his mind is made up. He appreciates the offer, but he's got a personal goal that requires him to get a lot stronger. Revi points out that the knights in the capital could actually teach him how to fight. Eldmia just looks away, insisting Asilia is the only master he needs. To him, an elven mage like Asilia is as strong as it gets. Why look anywhere else? Revi drops a heavy question. What if there's someone out there even stronger than his sister? Before Eldmia can even process that, a massive pair of armored boots thuds onto the floor behind him. The boy scoffs, wondering why a total big shot would even bother wasting time on him. A voice from right behind him wonders the same thing. Eldmia freezes. His eyes go wide. He didn't hear a single footstep. He spins around to find a towering knight in polished white armor standing in the doorway. He didn't sense this guy's presence at all. Eldmia snaps, asking who the hell he is. Revi quickly steps in to calm him down. She recognizes him immediately. It's Sir Ikaf. The knight is just glad to see Lady Laguni safe. Eldmia's brain short-circuits at the name. He identifies her as the shield of the kingdom, Margrave Laguni's Rienda Revian. The name Revian hits Eldmia like a truck. A Margrave? That's serious business. He pictures the map of the kingdom. The Revian territory is massive, their tiny village of Ogwin is just a speck compared to it. He looks at Revi. She isn't just some noble girl, she's from one of the most powerful families in the land. She's an even bigger deal than all the rumors he's heard. Eldmia is completely stunned. Sir Ikaf shifts his focus to the boy. His purple eyes are sharp and calculating. He asks if he's speaking to Eldmia. The boy doesn't back down from the intense gaze. The knight is surprised a kid this young managed to take out Dandel. He's curious if the rumors about Eldmia using aura are true. Eldmia glares back. He's not in the mood for an interrogation. He tells Sir Ikaf his business is none of his. Revi tries to intervene, but the tension is rising. Eldmia makes it clear he doesn't like him. He asks where this supposed guardian was when Revi was actually in danger. Revi shouts that it was all her fault, but Eldmia is too focused on the knight. Sir Ikaf remains calm. He tells the boy this is a political matter far beyond the business of an outsider. Eldmia bristles at being called an outsider. He's ready to snap. Then Sir Ikaf makes an offer. Everything would change if the boy became his disciple. Revi explains that this was why she brought him here. Sir Ikaf actually wants to welcome him into the family. This man is the third sword of the king, Sir Ikaf Tushan Agatorf. He's one of the strongest fighters in the entire capital. Sir Ikaf admits he's already dug into the boy's past. He knows about his recent fights with the local thugs. Eldmia's expression darkens. The knight knows more than he should. He brings up 3 years ago, when Eldmia's parents were killed by the Demon Lord's army. He knows the boy is only seeking strength for revenge. The mention of his parents strikes a nerve. Eldmia grinds his teeth as the memory floods back. He lunges forward, his foot kicking off the floor with explosive force. He screams, demanding to know what a guy like him could possibly know. He throws a punch straight at the knight's face. Sir Ikaf doesn't even flinch. He catches the punch in his armored palm with zero effort. He warns the boy never to let emotions dictate his actions. Rage just makes his moves predictable and sloppy. Eldmia tries to pull his hand back, but the knight's grip is like a vice. He's completely pinned. He doesn't give up, spinning around to launch a desperate follow-up kick. Sir Ikaf's eyes narrow. He notices something unusual about the boy's energy. A brilliant blue aura flares up as the kick connects with the knight's arm. It's not just aura, it's raw magic power. Eldmia is stunned. He actually managed to land a hit. His blue eyes widened, something didn't feel right. Sir Ikaf completely blocked his kick with his hand. The boy collapses, the effort having taken everything out of him. The knight admits he'd love to spar more, but there's no time. Sir Ikaf tells him he's in no condition to keep going. Eldmia groans in frustration. The boy snaps back, saying if the knight was really that strong, he should have saved Revi sooner. Titles don't mean anything if you aren't there when it counts. Sir Ikaf looks down, agreeing with the boy. No matter the title, there are always things they fail to protect. He thinks of all the people out there crying for help that they'll never know about. It's impossible to save everyone. He places a heavy hand on Eldmia's shoulder. There's only one real solution. They have to annihilate the Demon Lord's army. That's the only way to truly save everyone. To do that, the kingdom needs every strong fighter it can get, especially talented ones like Eldmia. Sir Ikaf promises to make him stronger than anyone else. He asks Eldmia to become a sword of the kingdom and fight alongside him. Eldmia looks away, lost in thought. The weight of the choice is heavy. He walks through the familiar fields of his home one last time. Asilia is waiting for him under the great tree. He stops, looking up at her. She knows what he's decided. He calls out to her. She turns around, a sad but knowing smile on her face. Asilia knew this day would come eventually, but she didn't expect it so soon. She asks if he's really leaving. Leaves swirl around them in the breeze. The forest seems to be mourning his departure. Eldmia looks at her, explaining he has to do whatever it takes to get stronger. She understands, doesn't she? He thanks her from the bottom of his heart. The last 3 years have meant everything to him. She looks at him tenderly. She's raised him like her own. She calls him by his nickname, Eldy. Her heart is breaking, but she's proud. She opens her arms wide, asking for one last hug before he goes. She has a warm, bright smile despite the sadness. Eldmia can't find the words. He just nods. He runs into her arms, hugging her tight under the golden light of the tree. It's a final, silent promise. A carriage rolls down the dusty road, leaving the sanctuary of Ogwen far behind. The journey has begun. Inside, Eldmia wears a new gold tassel earring. It's a gift from Asilia. Revi notices it immediately. She's never seen him wear jewelry before. He tells her Asilia gave it to him. It's part of a traditional elven ritual to make sure a promise is kept. Revi starts to blush. She wonders what kind of promise he could have possibly made to an elf. Eldmia just chuckles and says it's a secret. Now she's even more curious. Back at the tree, Asilia watches the carriage fade into the distance. She's left behind, but her heart goes with him. They arrive at the royal capital. The Augatorf estate is a massive, opulent mansion that dwarfs anything Eldmia has ever seen. In the training grounds, someone is venting their frustration. Training dummies lie shattered on the floor. A girl with long blonde hair crumples a piece of paper in her gloved hand. She's livid that her father would bring home some random brat as a disciple. She mutters Eldmia's name with pure spite. She isn't about to let some country kid take her place. This is Cheryl Augatorf. She grips her sword, determined to show him just how terrifying her family can be. The carriage continues through the bustling streets. The political climate in the capital is more dangerous than any monster. Revi explains the situation to Eldmia. The country is split right down the middle between the royalists and the noble factions. She's the only one left in her family. Even though she's the rightful heir, she's still a minor with no actual power. That's why the nobles tried to kidnap her. She's nothing but a pawn to them, a way to manipulate the Revian house and everyone connected to it. The nobles probably figured she'd be a useful tool in their war against the crown. Revi's existence is a political landmine. Inside the carriage, Eldmia asks Revi why she didn't just seek help from the royalist faction if her family belongs to it. Revi looks down, her expression serious as she explains her desire to be the driving force behind her family's restoration. She notes that people are often moved by dramatic narratives, implying a calculated move for public sympathy. She envisions herself as a pitiful survivor, a role she refuses to accept because it wouldn't garner the strong support needed for her house. Eldmia listens intently as she describes her plan, to survive independently and return when she's of age as the rightful heir. She imagines a grand return, appearing before the kingdom as the brave daughter of a hero, ready to reclaim her legacy. With a bright smile, she tells him that such a story would solidify the royalists' position and win over the common people. Eldmia finds the plan incredibly reckless, wondering if it wouldn't have been safer for the royalists to simply hide her until she matured. Sir Ikaf, listening in, agrees with the logic but notes that Revi adamantly refused to reveal her location to anyone. Revi turns to Eldmia with a playful look, reminding him that despite her planning, it was he who truly saved her in the end. Eldmia offers a gentle smile, content as long as she is safe and sound. The carriage makes its way across the vast landscape toward the towering walls of the royal capital. Sir Ikaf, handling the reins, informs them that they are nearing their destination. The wheels of the carriage rumble over the road, carrying them into a new chapter of their lives. They arrive at the massive, ornate estate belonging to the Augatorf family. Eldmia is wide-eyed at the luxury, while Revi looks out the window, reminiscing about her last visit. Revi asks Sir Ikaf how his daughter, Cheryl, has been doing lately. Sir Ikaf pauses as he steps out, admitting that Cheryl has been going through a bit of a rebellious phase. As someone reaches for the carriage door, he warns that she has become quite strong-willed. Suddenly, the door is thrown open by a young woman with long blonde hair and an intense gaze. Cheryl Ogatorf. She glares into the carriage with piercing purple eyes, her expression anything but welcoming. Eldmia and Revi are taken aback by the sudden, fierce presence of the knight's daughter. Confused by the hostility, Eldmia asks the girl who she is. Cheryl's face contorts with anger as she confirms his identity, shouting his name with disdain. She quickly shifts to a polite greeting for Revi, Lady Lagunis, before turning her fury back on Eldmia. Pointing a finger at him, she challenges Eldmia to a duel on the spot to pay back his alleged insult to her father. Eldmia can only sigh at the absurdity, feeling more tired than annoyed. Sir Ikaf tries to play it off, claiming he arranged this friendly match to help the two of them bond. Eldmia isn't buying the excuse, especially when he sees the veteran knight looking noticeably nervous. Eldmia cracks his knuckles and smirks, deciding that a bit of exercise might be good after the long journey. If you insist, I accept your challenge, he declares, his competitive spirit flaring up. The two take their positions in the estate's training courtyard, practice swords in hand as they face off. Revi watches with concern, asking Sir Ikaf if it's really okay to let them fight right after meeting. Sir Ikaf breaks out in a cold sweat, realizing that once Cheryl is set on something, there is no stopping her. Cheryl enters a focused stance, her aura intensifying as she prepares to strike. She lunges forward, her feet kicking up dust as she closes the distance in an instant. With a fierce cry, she swings her blade at the newcomer. Eldmia meets the attack head-on, their wooden swords clashing with a heavy thud. Cheryl grits her teeth, telling him he has some nerve showing his face and ordering him to go back to his village. Eldmia retorts sharply, pointing out that it was her own father who invited him to become a disciple. The air rings with the sound of their constant strikes as they test each other's strength. They move with blinding speed, a flurry of wood and motion as the duel escalates into a genuine battle of skill. Eldmia deftly parries Cheryl's heavy blow, his focus entirely on his opponent's movements. The two trade strikes in a blur of motion, their practice swords clashing repeatedly in the courtyard. Cheryl's eyes narrow with intense focus, determined to find a weakness in the boy's defense. She unleashes a powerful overhead swing, forcing Eldmia to react quickly. Cheryl anticipates his reaction, her mind already several steps ahead as she tracks his movement. As Eldmia drops low to dodge the strike, Cheryl prepares her follow-up, expecting him to be vulnerable. She spins her blade with fluid precision, aiming to catch him off guard before he can recover. With a confident smirk, she declares that the duel is over, certain that her final strike will land. A foot plants firmly on the ground, signaling a sudden, decisive shift in momentum. Before Cheryl can react, Eldmia closes the gap with surprising speed, bypassing her guard entirely. The training yard falls silent as Eldmia brings his sword to a halt, the wooden tip resting inches from Cheryl's throat. Cheryl stands frozen, her own weapon rendered useless by Eldmia's lightning-fast countermaneuver. A look of pure shock washes over her face as she realizes she has been completely outplayed. Her heart races as she tries to process the speed and skill he just demonstrated, wondering how he could have moved so fast. Her eyes tremble, the reality of her defeat sinking in as she stares at the point of the sword. Eldmia casually lowers his weapon and lets out a soft ouch, the physical strain of the battle finally catching up to him. Looking entirely unfazed, he asks her if she is finally satisfied with the result of their duel. Cheryl explodes with indignation, accusing him of holding back and demanding that he finish the fight properly, while Eldmia dryly notes that doing so might actually kill him. Eldmia calmly retorts that he never meant to insult her father, explaining that he simply has his own pride to maintain. Cheryl remains silent for a moment, her initial anger giving way to a grudging curiosity about the newcomer. With a friendly grin, Eldmia extends his hand, making it clear that he isn't going anywhere until he reaches his goal. Cheryl stares at the offered hand, her pride still stinging from the loss. After a tense hesitation, she reaches out, though her expression remains defiant. Instead of a truce, she snaps at him, betting he won't last 3 days before running back to his village, sparking another round of bickering. Sir Ikaf and Revi watch the kids from the sidelines. Ikaf notes that both Eldmia and his daughter have one big thing in common: they absolutely hate losing. Eldmia isn't just talk, though. He's fired up, shouting that he's going to get way stronger than anyone expects. The grind starts immediately. Sweat hits the floorboards as he pushes his body to the limit. Every morning begins the same way, endless push-ups in his room before the sun is even fully up. Outside, the training is even more brutal. Ikaf stands over him like a hawk, making sure his form is perfect. He spends hours hacking away at training dummies, focusing on speed and precision until his arms feel like lead. Strength training is next level. He's out in the woods dragging massive boulders uphill while the cicadas buzz in the heat. By the time he hits the bed, he's completely spent. It's a cycle of pain, but he isn't stopping. The seasons start to shift. Outside the window, the lush green leaves begin to turn into the fiery oranges of autumn. The intensity only ramps up as the air gets cooler. He's moving faster now, his strikes carrying more weight. He starts sparring with Cheryl, and it's a total deadlock. Ikaf watches from the back, seeing his daughter and the country brat push each other to the brink. Cheryl isn't making it easy. She lunges forward, catching Eldmia off guard with a speed he didn't see coming. Then comes the bite of winter. Snow piles up on the branches, but the training doesn't slow down for a second. He's out there barefoot in the freezing cold, blue aura flaring around his feet as he connects with the raw magic inside him. Shirtless in a blizzard, he's practically steaming. You can see the change, he's not a scrawny kid anymore. He's building real power. He takes a deep breath, the cold air filling his lungs as he focuses his mind. Reaching his goal is the only thing that matters. Finally, the frost begins to melt. The sky clears up, welcoming the return of the sun. Tiny pink buds start to bloom on the branches. Spring is here, and a full year of training is officially in the books. Back in the room, a hand hits the floor, but it's much larger and steadier than before. Eldmia is a beast now. He's knocking out one-handed push-ups like they're nothing, his physique completely transformed into a wall of muscle. Cheryl kicks the door open without a second thought, telling him to quit stalling and hurry up. She's grown up quite a bit herself. Eldmia just groans, telling her to learn how to knock. She doesn't care, she's worried all the good adventurer quests will be gone if they're late. He wipes the sweat away, looking like a completely different person. The scrawny kid is gone, the Avenger is ready. They leave their cabin behind, heading out into the world as a professional duo. Their name is already starting to travel. Meanwhile, in a dark hideout, a bandit grins as he dumps a bag of stolen gold onto a table. The bandit boss leans back, satisfied. He's got his crew gathered, celebrating what they're calling a massive jackpot. The boss is practically gloating, laughing about how moving their operations to the royal capital was the best move they ever made. He's already planning the next few raids, figuring they can milk the rich folks for a few more runs before the guild even notices they're there. He finds it hilarious. One little threat and these people just beg for their lives, handing over everything they've got. But a cold voice cuts through the laughter. A hooded figure is watching from the doorway, whispering a single word, scum. Cheryl steps into the light, her eyes narrow and full of contempt. She's heard enough of their bragging. Before the boss can even stand up, her sword is at his throat. He freezes, realizing he's been completely blindsided. He starts sweating, stammering out a question about who the hell she is and how she got inside. The rest of the crew jumps up, shouting for their boss. They're insulted that a couple of adventurers would just barge in like they own the place. Cheryl snaps at them to shut up. She's done talking. She calls out to Eldmia, telling him it's time to finish this. The bandits start scrambling, shouting to guard the windows and doors. They realize she didn't come alone. Cheryl just smirks. She tells Eldmia to hurry it up, she's getting bored already. One bandit looks up and his heart stops. High up in the rafters, a hooded Eldmia is perched like a predator, blue aura glowing from his eyes. Panic sets in as the bandit realizes exactly who they're dealing with. It's too late. Eldmia drops from the ceiling like a meteor, his blade already drawn and glowing with lethal energy. The bandits try to fight back, pointing and screaming, but they're way out of their league. It's a total slaughter. Eldmia moves like a blur, cutting through them with ruthless efficiency. The mad dog has officially arrived. Eldmia's eyes are practically glowing blue under that hood. He's completely locked in. Some bandit thinks he can get the jump on him, screaming like a total lunatic. Bad idea. Eldmia plants his foot, getting ready to launch into his next move. Blue aura flares as he delivers a massive kick right to the guy's jaw. That dude is definitely not getting back up. He doesn't even pause to admire his work. He's already focusing on the next target. Blood sprays as Eldmia cuts through another bandit like he's made of paper. The kid is absolutely lethal. It's a total mess inside the cabin. Most of the crew is already down, and the survivors are losing their minds. Cheryl keeps her sword on the bandit boss while Eldmia stands amidst the carnage, looking completely unfazed by the blood on the floor. The boss is a blubbering mess now, dropping to his knees and begging for his life. He's offering up every last coin they've stolen, thinking money can buy him a way out of this situation. Eldmia pulls his hood back, telling him he's not even worth the effort to kill. That's cold. He tells the guy they're only keeping him alive as proof for the guild that the job is done. The boss thinks he's getting off easy, but Eldmia has other plans. He clenches his fist, promising to beat a lesson into the guy's body that he'll never forget. He lunges forward with a terrifying look in his eyes. He wants to make sure this guy remembers the name Eldmia EGA for the rest of his miserable life. Outside the hideout, the silence of the forest is shattered by the bandits' agonized screams. It's a brutal ending for that crew. Scene change to the bustling Adventurers Guild in the royal capital. Things are looking way more upscale here. The receptionist is all smiles as she confirms the suppression quest was a total success. Job well done. She hands Eldmia a heavy sack of reward money. He takes it with a satisfied grin, finally seeing the payoff for all that training. Eldmia is ready to call it a day, but he sees Cheryl is already scanning the next set of job postings. The grind never stops. He reminds her she's supposed to be at the academy tomorrow, but she says vacation officially starts now. So, more quests it is. He takes a look at the quest she found. It's another bandit job, but the scale is on a completely different level. Cheryl explains it's a massive operation near a vineyard to the west, hiring a small army of 60 adventurers for this one. Eldmia asks if her dad, Lord Akaf, is gonna be cool with this. She just smirks and says she's got a great idea to handle him. We see a glimpse of her plan. She basically tells Akaf that if he says no, she'll just sneak out and follow him to the battlefield anyway. Works every time. As they walk away, Eldmia feels eyes on him and glances up at the guild's high windows. Someone is watching. Up in his office, the guildmaster is indeed watching the rookie with a very interested expression. He's taking notes. He tells his companion that Eldmia appeared out of nowhere a year ago and has been rising through the ranks like a comet. He notes that no matter who the kid faces, he crushes them without even a hint of mercy. Total domination. Because of that cold efficiency, people in the capital have started calling him the Mad Dog. A name that definitely fits. The mysterious person in the cloak listens quietly, processing just how dangerous this kid might actually be. Eldmia just chuckles at the new nickname. He doesn't care what they call him as long as he's getting results. 2 days later, they're at a wine vineyard on the outskirts of the city where a huge crowd of adventurers has gathered. Eldmia looks around at the sea of hired swords, wondering which one of these guys is actually the one paying the bills. Cheryl points out the grumpy noble sitting nearby. That's Baron Papaera, a guy who reportedly bought his title with cash. Eldmia isn't impressed. Buying a title is usually a huge red flag for someone with no real backbone or skills. A loud-mouthed representative for the Baron steps up, shouting for everyone to listen up because it's time to start. He points to the dense forest across a wide, open field, claiming that's where the 20 bandits are hiding out. The master plan, he explains, is to just form a single line and charge straight across the field all at once. Eldmia and Cheryl are stunned. Eldmia stares at the guy like he's got a second head. He's wondering if this dude is actually for real. He looks out at the open field. There's zero cover. Charging across that space is basically a death sentence for anyone in line. The other adventurers are already starting to protest, shouting and asking if the Baron is trying to get them all killed. Cheryl whispers to Eldmia that this whole thing feels incredibly wrong. He nods. This isn't a mission, it's a setup. Baron Papaera just sits there with his arms crossed, looking down his nose at everyone. That guy is definitely plotting something. The client representative starts waving his hands, trying to calm the rowdy crowd. He claims the suicide charge was just a suggestion, not an absolute order. He mentions that the Baron simply wants to suppress the bandits as quickly as possible. Yeah, right. Everyone knows haste makes waste. Then he drops the hook. He says the Baron has a special proposal for everyone gathered here to make it worth their while. An extra 5 silver coins for anyone who bravely charges in first. It's a blatant bribe to get people to act as meat shields. It works. Someone's grip tightens on their sword. Greed is a powerful motivator, even when the risk is a cold grave. A bunch of the less experienced adventurers start cheering, waving their blades in the air. They're ready to jump into the fire for a handful of silver. The client representative gets this absolutely disgusting, wide-eyed grin on his face. He knows he's just sold those men's lives for a discount. Eldmia's seen enough. He realizes exactly what kind of game is being played here, and he isn't interested in being a pawn. He stretches his arms behind his head, casually telling the guy that since it's optional, he and Cheryl are going to do their own thing. The representative's jaw practically hits the floor. Eldmia gives him a sharp, knowing look, asking if there's actually an issue with them acting independently. He's calling the guy's bluff. The guy starts sweating buckets, stuttering out a nervous laugh. He clearly didn't expect anyone to have the guts to refuse such generous pay. He looks like he's about to have a total meltdown. He keeps glancing back toward the Baron, desperate for some kind of sign. The Baron doesn't move a muscle, just sitting there on his log while his personal guards stand at the ready. He's the one pulling all the strings. Finally, the Baron gives a slight, cold glare, silently signaling to let the kids go. They're not worth the public scene. The client representative instantly flips back to his fake friendly persona, telling them it's totally fine for them to head out on their own. Eldmia and Cheryl don't waste any time, turning their backs on the camp and heading toward the dense tree line. Once they're away from the group, Cheryl confirms what they both already know, that charge was a blatant trap. Eldmia just nods. Eldmia's eyes narrow with suspicion. He knows the Baron is up to something, but he can't figure out why he'd sacrifice so many people for a few bandits. Cheryl looks ahead into the brush, her voice dropping to a grim, serious tone as she considers the consequences of the Baron's plan. She says it out loud, if they don't do something to intervene, every single one of those adventurers is going to die out there today. The morning sun filters through the trees of a quiet forest path, but the peace is a total lie. Deep in the thicket, a group of archers is lying in wait, their arrows notched and ready for an ambush. They've been tracking two rookie adventurers and just got word that the pair finally split up. The bandits think it's hilarious, figuring the kids are just idiots blinded by the promise of easy silver. A heavy boot steps onto the dirt road, signaling the start of the hunt. One of the guys laughs, remembering how the last hero he met ended up begging for his life on his knees. A hand tightens its grip on a sword hilt, ready to draw. The bandit can't wait to see what kind of pathetic faces these new rookies are going to make when they're cornered. Suddenly, a blur of motion cuts through the air before they can even blink. Eldmia drops into the middle of them, his eyes glowing with a cold, supernatural blue light. The thug doesn't even have time to react before the shadow is right on top of him. A spray of blood paints the forest floor as Eldmia begins his work without a word. Another archer panics, fumbling his shot as he realizes the prey is actually the predator. Eldmia is a storm of violence, closing the distance in the blink of an eye. A heavy fist smashes into the man's face, sending a spray of red into the air. He spins into the next target, his movements fluid and terrifyingly efficient. He slams a bandit's head into a tree with enough force to crack the wood. The rest of the squad shouts in panic, finally understanding that they're the ones being slaughtered. Eldmia stands calmly for a moment, flicking the blood off his hands as if he's just clearing away dust. He takes another step forward, his expression completely stone-cold. He swings his blade with such speed that the air itself seems to scream. The sword glows with a vibrant blue aura as he channels his raw magical power through the steel. He cleaves through a bandit before the man can even raise his guard to parry. From above, the clearing is a blur of motion and steel as Eldmia carves his way through the group. One last archer draws his bow in a desperate, trembling attempt to land a lucky hit. Eldmia's gaze locks onto the arrow, his focus sharpening as time seems to slow. He tilts his head slightly, letting the arrow whistle harmlessly past his ear. The archer's jaw drops, he can't believe a human can move with that kind of precision. In an instant, the rest of the squad is cut down in a shower of blood. The leader tries to rally his remaining men, shouting that it's just one kid and they can take him. He orders everyone to attack at once, but they're already paralyzed by the carnage. Eldmia just gives them a chilling smirk, welcoming the challenge. He settles into a low stance, his blade ready to finish the job. This was all part of the plan he and Cheryl came up with before they split up. They knew the Baron was likely using these bandits to do his dirty work. Eldmia had assured her he could handle the thugs while she looked for evidence of the scheme. Cheryl had been a little skeptical, not quite trusting his definition of a good plan. In his own head, even he had to admit it wasn't much of a plan, really. But looking at the clearing now, the results speak for themselves. He takes a breath, the thrill of the slaughter finally beginning to fade. With this much chaos, word of the attack is bound to reach the Baron's ears soon. Now, he just needs to know if Cheryl found what she was looking for on her end. Eldmia looks down at the archer, thinking that his partner, Cheryl, should be doing just fine on her end of the mission. He gives the guy a sharp tap on the head with his sword hilt to get his attention and wake him up. The bandit groans as he slowly stirs, blood dripping from his nose from the earlier beating. Eldmia grins menacingly, suggesting it's time for a nice little chat about what's really going on in these woods. The archer's face is pale with terror as he realizes he's completely at the boy's mercy. Elsewhere in the forest, the wind whispers through the leaves of a strangely silent clearing. A heavy brown boot steps cautiously onto the dirt path as someone approaches the heart of the woods. Cheryl arrives at the ruins of the bandit hideout, noting that the place seems far too abandoned. She's certain there has to be some kind of clue here that the Baron was desperate to keep hidden. Her eyes sharpen as she spots something unusual tucked away near the edge of the clearing. It's a small wooden shed, and it looks suspiciously clean for a supposed ruin. She pulls the door open, only to find a dark, ominous entrance leading down into the ground. The air coming from the basement is cold, and the darkness seems to swallow the light from outside. Slowly and carefully, she begins to descend the narrow wooden stairs. A foul, iron-like stench hits her halfway down, and she's forced to cover her nose with her cloak. Suddenly, she feels her boots step into something wet and sticky on the floor. Something cold and lifeless brushes against her foot, sending a chill straight down her spine. Her eyes widen in horror as she realizes exactly what she stepped into. At the bottom of the stairs, she finds a massive, blood-soaked pile of human corpses. Back in the forest, Eldmia's interrogation takes a darker turn as he repeats the word, collecting. The bandit stammers out a confession, admitting they've been gathering piles of bodies. Eldmia grabs him, demanding to know why they have the corpses of adventurers from the last quest. He's disgusted by the depravity, but the bandit just begs, saying they were following orders from above. The plan was to burn all the old bodies together with the new victims they were meant to kill today. It's clear now. Every single one of these thugs was directly hired by Baron Powerless himself. When Eldmia asks where the bodies are hidden, the bandit says, executives are guarding them. Eldmia's heart skips a beat when he hears that one of these guards can even use aura. He looks toward the ruined hideout, realizing with a jolt that Cheryl is in serious danger. Meanwhile, Cheryl finds the victims' adventurer tags among the bodies. They're all green rank. She realizes the Baron targeted beginners by disguising this as an easy extermination quest. But before she can make a move to leave, a shadow falls over the basement entrance. A heavy boot steps onto the top of the wooden stairs, blocking her only way out. Her heart hammers against her ribs as she looks up at the shadow of the approaching intruder. She's trapped in a dark room full of corpses with a killer closing in from above. She grits her teeth and prepares herself to fight her way out of the basement. Outside the shed, the door stands open as the silence of the clearing is broken. Above the forest canopy, the sky remains clear and bright, oblivious to the tragedy below. A group of armed men, the Baron's personal soldiers, stand ready at the edge of the clearing. Baron Powerless stands among them, listening as a soldier reports that everything is finally ready. The Baron gives a cold, calculated smile, ordering them to handle any survivors on their end. He's convinced his plan to gain fame by wiping out the bandits is going perfectly. But his smug expression vanishes when one of his men runs up, shouting that it's an emergency. Baron Powerless is absolutely stunned, unable to believe what he's hearing about the boy's interference in his plans. He grits his teeth in a blind rage, his face contorting with fury at the unexpected setback. Coldly, he orders his subordinate to keep the adventurers waiting at all costs, using whatever excuse is necessary to stall them. Without another word, he grips the hilt of his sword and prepares to head out into the forest. Drawing his blade, he declares with venom in his voice that he will deal with the brat himself. He marches out of the camp followed by his unit of armed soldiers, intent on finishing the job personally. Deep inside the dark basement of the shed, a bandit officer senses a presence and turns around with a suspicious glance. He thrusts his blood-stained blade into the pile of corpses, checking for any signs of life among the victims. Cheryl stands her ground at the bottom of the stairs, her sword drawn and eyes fixed on the man. The bandit leader curses the Baron's incompetence as he stomps down the stairs to deal with the intruder himself. Cheryl watches him closely, noting his confident demeanor and wondering if he's one of the officers the bandit mentioned. She tightens her grip on her sword, knowing that while a fight isn't ideal, it's now unavoidable. A fierce, determined smile crosses her face as she decides to show this thug what a real adventurer can do. In an instant, she lunges forward, her blade igniting with a brilliant, pulsing white light. The bandit leader barely has time to react, his eyes bulging in shock as he demands to know who she is. Suddenly, the entire shed erupts in a massive cloud of dust and debris as the force of her attack blows out the walls. The bandit is sent tumbling backward through the air, coughing and gasping for breath from the sheer impact. Cheryl lands gracefully in the clearing outside, her cloak fluttering as she prepares for her next move. She levels her sword at the fallen man, coldly telling him to spit out everything he knows. The bandit leader crawls backward in the dirt, laughing weakly as he tells her she's not alone. The sound of heavy footsteps echoes through the trees as a group of reinforcements arrives to surround her. The thugs draw their weapons, gloating that it's far too late for her to beg for mercy. Cheryl scans the circle of enemies, acknowledging to herself that taking on this many at once might be tough. But her gaze remains steady, and she admits that she already knew there would be others. A confident smirk tugs at the corner of her mouth, revealing that she has a plan of her own. She tells the stunned bandit that, as it turns out, she isn't actually alone either. On cue, Eldmia drops from the sky like a blue comet, his sword wreathed in powerful, swirling energy. Two of the bandits look up in pure terror, realizing they've been targeted from above by a second attacker. In a single, fluid motion, Eldmia slashes through the group in a dazzling display of speed and power. The bandit leader screams out in frustration, realizing too late that she has allies. He looks around wildly, but his targets are moving so fast they're almost invisible. Within seconds, the clearing is silent once more, the only sound the wind whipping through the dust. Cheryl appears behind the last remaining guard, his blade glowing with an intense, deadly radiance. The bandit freezes, his eyes wide with the realization that he is completely outclassed. Together, Eldmia and Cheryl move through the remaining thugs like a whirlwind of steel. Blades clash in the sunlight, but the battle is already decided as the last of the bandits fall. Cheryl delivers a final, decisive blow, her movements precise and lethal. Eldmia leaps onto his next target, his focus absolute as he shuts down any attempt at a counterattack. He hangs in the air for a split second, a silhouette of power against the bright forest background. He lands softly, standing over the defeated enemy as the dust from the skirmish finally begins to settle. Eldmia thinks back to the bandit's warning about an officer who could use aura, noting that he didn't encounter anyone like that. Cheryl walks over to join him, and Eldmia asks her if she managed to find anything useful in that shed. Cheryl points toward the nearby shed, explaining that the basement is packed with the bodies of adventurers killed during the first failed suppression. She sighs in frustration, regretting that she didn't leave a single bandit alive to interrogate for more information about their plans. Eldmia reassures her, mentioning that he kept one alive who can testify to the connection between the Baron and the bandits. Cheryl admits that's a start, but she's still worried they won't be able to figure out exactly what the Baron is plotting at this rate. Suddenly, the rustle of leaves and a heavy presence in the nearby bushes catch their attention as they stand among the ruins. Eldmia's expression turns cold and focused as he tells her not to worry, promising that they are about to find out the truth soon enough. A heavy boot slams into the dirt path, surrounded by a faint, ominous pink aura that signals a high-level threat. Baron Popera leaps from the forest canopy, his sword blazing with magical energy as he aims a lethal overhead strike at Eldmia. Sensing the incoming danger, Eldmia narrows his eyes and readies his weapon to counter the Baron's sudden ambush. The Baron's attack hits the ground with explosive force, but Eldmia manages to leap back just in time to avoid the blow. Eldmia skids across the path, his own body beginning to pulse with a blue aura as he stabilizes his combat stance. He looks up at his attacker, surprised that the Baron actually showed up and is indeed the officer capable of using aura. Baron Popera stands amidst the rising dust, his face twisted in a sneer as he calls the two adventurers meddlesome brats. His eyes bulge with sudden rage as he looks past them, finally seeing the extent of the damage they've dealt to his forces. He stares at the mangled corpses of his hired bandits, realizing his entire secret operation has been dismantled. He clutches his head in fury, lamenting all the effort he put into this scheme just to have his dreams of social standing ruined. Eldmia watches him with a mixture of disgust and curiosity, asking what possible benefit he could gain from luring adventurers here just to kill them. The Baron roars for him to be quiet, launching himself forward in another desperate and violent assault against the boy. Their blades meet in a shower of sparks, the forest ringing with the sharp sound of metal clashing against metal. With a wicked grin, the Baron tells Eldmia he'll share a secret before he dies, asking if the boy ever wondered why he was gathering the corpses. Eldmia's eyes widen in shock as the Baron begins to reveal the true, horrific nature of his deception. The Baron explains that he intended to present the dead adventurers as the defeated bandits to claim the glory for the suppression request. He envisions himself as a hero who wiped out a massive threat, gaining public attention and fame built upon a foundation of corpses. He laughs maniacally, declaring that even if this plan was slightly delayed, he can always just hire more bandits to replace the ones lost. Eldmia stares the Baron down, disgusted that he slaughtered innocent people just to boost his own fame. Popera is breaking a sweat, his sword locked against Eldmia's as he realizes he's completely outmatched. Eldmia doesn't waste any more time, moving in a blur and shattering the Baron's guard. He follows up with a brutal kick that lands square in the middle of the noble's chest. The impact is massive, sending the Baron reeling as he coughs up a spray of blood. He goes flying backward, crashing into the forest floor with enough force to kick up a cloud of dust. Gasping for air, the Baron looks up with a shattered expression, unable to comprehend what just happened. Eldmia stands over him, his eyes glowing with an intense, supernatural blue light. He tells Popera to rejoice, since the whole world is about to find out exactly what kind of scum he really is. Eldmia raises his glowing blade, ready to put an end to the corrupt noble right here. Terrified, the Baron throws his hands up and begs for his life, claiming he was just following orders. Eldmia isn't interested in excuses, figuring it's just another pathetic lie to avoid the blade. But then the Baron drops a word that makes everything stop: demons. He swears he was coerced, claiming that actual demons threatened to kill him if he didn't cooperate. Cheryl watches the interrogation from a distance, looking completely overwhelmed by the reveal. Eldmia freezes, the mention of demons hitting a raw nerve. His face goes cold and his eyes turn a menacing shade, demanding to know if he heard correctly. Pinned to the ground, the Baron repeats his story, desperate for a chance at mercy. Eldmia stares him down, trying to figure out if he's telling the truth or just trying to buy time. Before he can decide, a dark figure suddenly drops from the trees above. A sharp blade is held right against the Baron's throat in a flash. A mysterious man in a black cloak stands over him, moving with a speed that rivals even Eldmia. The newcomer looks down with cold eyes, showing zero hesitation. With one quick motion, he silences the Baron permanently. Blood splatters across the clearing as the noble's life ends in an instant. Eldmia can only watch in shock, his lead on the demons killed right before his eyes. He stands there stunned, trying to process the sudden intervention. The cloaked man stays calm, casually wiping the blood off his dagger as if it's just another day at work. He introduces himself as Walter, a member of the King's Shadow, the monarchy's secret intelligence unit. Sometime later, the scene shifts to the local adventurers guild, where things are getting serious. Cheryl mentions that she's heard of the King's Shadow, but thought they were just an old myth. They're essentially the kingdom's elite cleanup crew, working entirely from the darkness. With a reputation for extreme efficiency and blood-stained hands, they're the ones who handle what the law won't. Cheryl admits her father never spoke about them in detail, realizing just how deep this conspiracy goes. Walter sits comfortably on a sofa across from them, looking way too relaxed for someone who just committed a murder. The group meets in a private lounge, where the gravity of the situation starts to sink in. Eldmia doesn't care about their secret organization. He wants to know why Walter killed their only source of information. Walter offers a shallow apology, claiming the situation was urgent and they couldn't afford a leak. Eldmia snaps at him, pointing out that if the Baron was alive, they could have tracked down the demons behind him. Walter just keeps that smug smile, hinting that there's a lot more going on than Eldmia realizes. The conversation is interrupted by the sound of firm footsteps approaching. Guildmaster Ingrim enters the room, ready to break down the mission and what comes next. Guildmaster Ingrim starts with a formal apology, introducing himself like he's about to deliver some heavy news. Eldmia is not exactly buying the friendly act. He's wondering just how much the guild has been keeping from them. Ingrim admits the guild lacked oversight and thanks Eldmia and Cheryl for stepping up when things got ugly. But he quickly shifts gears, leaning back into his seat to signal that the conversation is about to get a lot more serious. He tells Eldmia point-blank that he can't answer all his questions because the situation is an extremely delicate matter for the kingdom. That doesn't go over well. Eldmia snaps at him for letting a prime lead slip away, and for once, Cheryl is totally on his side. Ingrim just gives a small, knowing smile, clearly having anticipated the backlash. He explains that they have a special request for Eldmia, promising that if he takes it, all the missing pieces will be filled in. Eldmia's interest is piqued, but he looks a little apprehensive about what kind of mess he's about to step into. Ingrim plays his cards close to the chest, saying he still can't give away the full details until Eldmia is officially in. Then he drops the bomb. The mission involves tracking the movements of the Demon King's army. Cheryl is completely floored, realizing that the rumors about demons pulling the strings were actually true. For Eldmia, the mention of demons sends a jolt through him, his fist clenching as he realizes his true target is finally within reach. Images of those bloodthirsty monsters flash through his mind, the ones who took everything from him. His eyes go cold and sharp, fueled by the memory of that one unforgettable day when his world was torn apart. Walter watches him closely, likely sensing the dark intensity radiating off the young adventurer. Eldmia accepts the request without a second thought, and Ingrim directs him to Walter for the actual briefing. Walter stands up, asking Eldmia to follow him to a place where they can speak without any listening ears. Cheryl stands up too, naturally assuming she's going with him, but the mood in the room says otherwise. Ingrim cuts her off immediately, apologizing but stating that she can't accompany Eldmia on this one. He gives her a forced smile, explaining that it would cause various problems if she got too deep into this operation. He reminds her of her position as the daughter of the kingdom's third sword, basically saying she's too high profile for a shadow mission. Frustrated and sidelined, Cheryl calls out to Eldmia as he walks out with the mysterious cloaked man. She gives him a stern look, warning him not to push himself too hard or do anything reckless. Eldmia just gives her a confident wave over his shoulder, telling her not to lose any sleep over him. Cheryl can only stand there and watch his back, clearly feeling the weight of being left behind. She's left alone in the room, her expression dark as she worries about what Eldmia is really getting himself into. Walter leads Eldmia out to a quiet cemetery on the outskirts of town, the sunset casting long shadows over the graves. He lays some flowers down while explaining that the recent spike in bandit attacks is no coincidence. According to Walter, the bandits aren't just greedy criminals, they're all acting under someone else's direct orders. Eldmia finds it hard to believe that demons would bother giving orders to a bunch of weak bandits. But Walter clarifies that they're just disposable pawns, used entirely to keep the kingdom's attention diverted. Then he drops the real news. Several demons have already infiltrated the area near the royal capital. He uses a puppet as an analogy. The bandits are just the strings used to divide the kingdom's focus while the demons move in. Eldmia asks why the army isn't handling it, but Walter explains that any large-scale movement would just alert the enemy. What they need is someone with exceptional skill who's a complete unknown, someone like Eldmia. The mission is to find the demons, figure out what they're planning, and bring them in alive if possible. Walter hands Eldmia a small piece of paper, marking the start of his official involvement in the kingdom's shadows. He also lets Eldmia know that he won't be flying solo. A specialized team is already waiting for him at the rendezvous point. Walter looks him dead in the eye, warning that even with his power, taking on demons alone is a recipe for disaster. Eldmia checks the location, his expression hardening as Walter guarantees the skill of the team the guildmaster selected. Night starts to settle over the city as Eldmia heads out to meet the strangers who will be joining him on this demon hunt. Eldmia pulls up to the taverning Rim told him about, figuring this is where his new team is supposed to be waiting. He pulls his hood low, reminding himself to stay sharp since they're operating right under the demons' noses. He pushes the door open, mentally preparing for a room full of hardened, stone-cold killers. Instead, he finds a typical tavern scene, noisy, crowded, and completely normal. He starts scanning the room, wondering which of these patrons is supposed to be his elite contact. But then he stops dead in his tracks, his eyes widening as he spots something truly horrifying. There's a giant banner hanging from the rafters, and his name is written on it in big, bold letters. The "Welcome Eldmia" sign is impossible to miss, and sitting right under it is a group that couldn't look less like secret agents if they tried. Eldmia is physically recoiling, wondering how a secret operation could possibly be this loud and conspicuous. The muscular red-haired woman, Ekaterina, stops drinking for a second and notices the kid staring at them. She lets out a boisterous laugh and waves him over, shouting his name across the room like they're at a birthday party. Eldmia is absolutely fuming, imagining the guildmaster giving him a thumbs up while he realizes his stealth mission is ruined before it even started. Eldmia sits at a table in the tavern, looking completely drained. He looks over his new party members, a dwarf focused on a scroll, a muscular woman with a huge mug, and a quiet girl in a hood. He asks if they're really the ones the guildmaster picked for him. Ekaterina just gives him a blank look, asking who that even is. Eldmia has to remind her it's the guy who literally gave them this mission. He tells her to stop standing out so much, worried about getting noticed. She just laughs it off, telling him that her being loud is the only reason he found them so quickly in the crowd. Eldmia tries to get her to lower her voice, but she just brushes it off with a casual apology. He's already getting a headache. This isn't a game to him. She doesn't let up, introducing herself as Ekaterina, a warrior from abroad. The girl in the hood finally speaks up, stuttering out that her name is Lily and she's a mage. Eldmia watches her shake like a leaf and wonders if she's ever actually been on a real mission before. Then he turns to the stocky guy sitting across from him. The guy just stares back, not saying a word. He goes right back to his scroll, completely ignoring Eldmia. Ekaterina laughs and explains that this is Jin, a dwarf who's more into his drawings than talking to people. Eldmia is starting to lose it. He can't believe this is the team he's stuck with. Meanwhile, Lily is already wishing she could just go home. Eldmia starts to introduce himself, but realizes he probably doesn't need to after seeing the banner they made for him. Ekaterina is actually excited, saying she can't wait to fight alongside the rumored Mad Dog. She says the nickname comes from how he rampages around like a dog off its leash. Eldmia isn't impressed. He was really hoping for something a bit cooler than that. Suddenly, a crash from the other side of the room catches his eye. A customer is having a heated argument with the shopkeeper. The owner is just trying to get the man to pay his bill for the food and drinks. The customer points a finger and tells him he's going to regret this. He shouts that everyone there is going to be his servant soon anyway. Eldmia watches the guy closely, sensing something is off. A companion steps in to cover the bill with some extra gold, trying to smooth things over. They finally head out, leaving the tavern behind. Eldmia asks the group if they heard that guy's weird threat. Lily mentions hearing rumors about humans siding with the demons, wondering if those guys are part of it. Ekaterina cracks her knuckles, ready to beat the answers out of them. Eldmia shuts that down immediately. There are too many of them, and if one escapes, the demons will know they're coming. Ekaterina just laughs and pats him on the back, impressed by his level-headedness. They watch from the shadows as the group of men heads into the dark forest. Eldmia and his team follow quietly from the brush. Lily asks if they're going in after them, but Eldmia knows it's too dangerous to tail them directly in unknown territory. He decides to take a different approach. Lily looks on in surprise as a faint light appears. A bright glowing light begins to pulse between Eldmia's hands. A spirit butterfly emerges and starts fluttering toward the group ahead. He tells his team to keep their distance and follow the spirit's trail. Lily is stunned to see him using spirit magic. Eldmia just casually mentions he learned it from an elf master. Eldmia tells the group they just happened to cross paths, but the mission is the priority. They need to start tracking those men right now. The group moves out, following the trail through the forest floor. Eldmia peeks through the dense foliage as they reach a vantage point. Below them, the group of suspicious men has arrived at a rocky entrance. Eldmia stays low, carefully observing their movements from the shadows. The entrance looks like an abandoned dungeon, hidden deep in the woods. A cold, smooth voice cuts through the air, telling the men they're late. Eldmia's eyes widen as he senses a terrifying presence. Someone steps out of the dungeon's darkness with an aura of pure malice. The figure has prominent black horns and long, silver hair. Eldmia is frozen in shock, his gaze locked on the new arrival. It's Lord Incantor, a demon noble, and he doesn't look happy about the delay. Eldmia can't believe it. There's no mistaking that aura, it's a high-ranking demon. Lord Incantor berates the men, asking why they can't keep a simple promise despite his permission for them to rest. The men stammer out apologies, claiming they just got a bit carried away on their first break in a while. Incantor tells them to make sure it doesn't happen again, but one of the men starts to get cocky. The guy complains about being stuck out here for 2 weeks and asks why they can't just let a little tardiness slide. He even has the nerve to say that Incantor is only here because of their help, so they deserve better treatment. The demon noble just stares at him coldly, asking if that's really how he feels. In a flash, Incantor's hand is on the man's face, gripping him with terrifying force. He crushes the man's skull with a sickening sound. Blood sprays everywhere as the human is executed instantly in front of his comrades. The other men are paralyzed with horror, unable to even scream. Up in the bushes, Eldmia and his team watch the brutal display in silence. Incantor sighs, calling the man a fool for complaining even after being promised a massive reward. He tells the survivors to clean up the trash quickly and reminds them that victory for the demons is near. He promises a reward befitting their efforts before ordering them back to their posts. The terrified men frantically agree, desperate to avoid their friend's fate. Ekaterina mutters about what an absolute psychopath the demon is and asks if Eldmia is okay. Eldmia's only response is a dark, unsettling grin. He whispers that he hasn't forgotten for even a single second. He clenches his chest, thinking about the scars left behind and everything that was stolen from him. He's finally found them. The trash he's been hunting this whole time. Incantor turns his back on the carnage and prepares to head back inside. The party stays hidden as the demon noble moves toward the cave. Ekaterina is ready to charge, telling the others they should follow him right now. Eldmia immediately stops her, telling her not to rush in without a solid plan. Lord Incantor stops mid-step, his eyes narrowing as he looks back toward the bushes. He scans the tree line, sensing something is out of place. Eldmia slams his hand over Ekaterina's mouth, forcing her to stay silent while he hides behind her. The demon lord couldn't shake off the feeling of being watched and dashed straight to check it out. His footsteps grew closer, making Eldmia's heart hammer against his ribs as danger drew nearer. Lord Incantor swings his arm, unleashing a wave of dark energy into the nearby woods. The pink-hued slash tears through the foliage with devastating speed. He stopped, seeing nothing behind the bushes. He shrugs it off, convinced it was just a trick of the light or his imagination. High above, the full moon shines brightly over the dark forest. In a safe clearing, the party finally takes a moment to catch their breath. Ekaterina lets out a loud laugh, relieved that the demon noble didn't discover their hiding spot. Eldmia snaps, his temper boiling over as he yells at her for being so careless. Startled by his outburst, Ekaterina tries to defend herself, saying they were going to fight eventually anyway. Eldmia doesn't back down, shouting that they are completely unprepared for what lies inside that dungeon. He stands over her, declaring that this isn't a game and she should go home if she won't take it seriously. He turns his cold gaze to Jin and Lily, telling them they should also turn back if they aren't fully committed. He looks away, his voice dropping as he admits he absolutely cannot afford a failure here. His eyes burn with a dark intensity, his only goal is to hunt down the demon lord's forces. Without another word, he starts walking back into the trees, telling them he'll handle the rest alone. The others watch him go in stunned silence, feeling the heavy weight of his anger and resolve. Sometime later, Eldmia finds a high ledge overlooking the entrance to the abandoned dungeon. He crouches in the shadows of the cliffside, his eyes fixed on the target. He spots a lone guard stationed at the cave and considers the best timing for an infiltration. He knows he can't just rush in, he needs to understand the layout of the place first. Suddenly, a finger taps him on the shoulder, making him jump. He's surprised to see Jin standing there, holding out a large, rolled-up document. Eldmia takes the scroll, wondering what the dwarf could possibly be showing him at a time like this. As he unfurls it, he's stunned to see a perfectly detailed architectural map of the dungeon. He looks at Jin in disbelief, realizing the dwarf spent his own time preparing this. Lily explains that Jin researched every local record to map out the entire region's underground structures. Eldmia remembers Jin's intense focus at the tavern and realizes how much he underestimated his companions. With a renewed sense of respect, Eldmia gives Jin a thumbs up, which the dwarf happily returns. Ekaterina walks up to him, using his "Mad Dog" nickname in a much softer tone than before. She offers a sincere apology, admitting she hasn't worked in a team for a long time and let her guard down. Eldmia calms down, telling her it's fine as long as they stay focused from here on out. Ekaterina promises not to pry into his past, acknowledging that everyone has their own reasons for fighting demons. Lily adds that they are all here by choice and are fully prepared to see the mission through to the end. With a determined grin, Ekaterina reaches out her hand, inviting him to lead them into battle together. Eldmia pauses, looking at his companions with a new perspective. He feels a pang of guilt, thinking how pathetic it was to lose his cool and lash out like a child. He realizes that despite his past experience, he can't achieve his goal of vengeance by himself. His expression softens as he accepts the reality that he needs this team. He firmly grasps Ekaterina's hand, telling her that he's counting on all of them. He vows to make up for his earlier behavior by ensuring this mission is a total success. With a confident smile, Eldmia declares they will form a plan that utilizes every one of their unique skills. Together, the group looks down at the dungeon, no longer as strangers, but as a unit ready for war. At the cave entrance, a weary dungeon guard lets out a massive yawn, complaining about how tired he is. His eyes suddenly snap wide in alarm as he catches sight of a figure approaching from the shadows. A heavy foot slams onto the dirt, and the guard stammers out a challenge to the intruder. Ekaterina looms over him with a terrifying, toothy grin, her massive hammer resting ready on her shoulder. Back in their planning session, Eldmia explains that the dungeon consists of a large central chamber with several smaller rooms branching off. Crouched around the hand-drawn map, Eldmia points to a specific room at the very back that seems the most suspicious. He outlines the strategy. One member will create a diversion while the others infiltrate the target area to stop the demon's plans. Ekaterina immediately speaks up, offering to act as the bait for the mission. She flashes a confident smirk, telling Eldmia that a loud, flashy job like this is exactly what she's best at. Standing tall with her weapon, she declares that sneaking around isn't her style and she's ready to finally cut loose. Back at the entrance, the guard's blood runs cold as Ekaterina shouts a command for him to get out of her way. With a sudden burst of speed, she slides her foot across the ground, preparing for a devastating strike. Brandishing her giant hammer, she charges toward the pieces of trash, who have aligned themselves with demons. Her foot plants firmly into the earth as she puts all her weight into a colossal swing. Leaping high into the air, she brings her hammer down with the force of a falling mountain. The impact creates a massive explosion of rock and dust, completely engulfing the entrance in a violent tremor. Debris flies everywhere as the sounds of the struggle echo through the quiet forest. As the dust begins to settle, Ekaterina stands triumphantly over the now unconscious guard. She lets out a boisterous laugh, wondering aloud if she might have been a little bit too reckless with her attack. She turns back to give the signal, telling the rest of the team to hurry inside before more reinforcements arrive. Eldmia draws his sword with a determined look, offering a quick word of thanks to Ekaterina for the opening. Under the glow of the full moon, Eldmia, Lily, and Jin sprint into the mouth of the cave to begin their operation. Deep within the dungeon, the air is thick with dust and a sense of ancient, dark magic. Standing silently in a grand, pillared hall, Lord Incanter waits, seemingly anticipating the arrival of the intruders. A panicked guard runs in, shouting that someone is tearing up the entrance. Lord Incanter doesn't take the news well. Without a word, he just deletes the guy with a blast of purple energy. He's clearly not in the mood for excuses. Looking down at the mess, he mocks how pathetic humans are for being unable to hide their presence. One of the hooded lackeys nervously asks if they should change the plan or retreat. Incanter shuts that down immediately, the plan goes on. The mage doesn't argue, just gets back to work. Incantor starts walking. He decides to handle this personally and make whoever it is regret bothering him. Inside, more guards are scrambling. They're all rushing toward the front, desperate to stop the intruder. While they're distracted, Eldmia EGA watches from the shadows. It's working. The decoy has everyone's attention. He tells Jin it's time to move toward the inner rooms. But then he notices Lily has stopped. She's curled up on the floor, shaking like a leaf. The poor girl is completely paralyzed by fear. She looks up, startled, when he calls her name. The boy asks if she's okay, and she can barely get out an apology for being so nervous. She's beating herself up, calling her own fear pathetic. Eldmia just looks at her for a second. She waits for him to scold her. Instead, he admits that even his own heart feels like it's going to burst when he thinks about demons. He tells her he just chooses to look at the goal instead of the fear. He reminds her why she came this far and tells her they'll overcome it together. His words finally seem to reach her. Lily grabs her staff, finding her resolve to keep going. They take off, heading deeper into the central room. Meanwhile, back at the entrance, things are getting loud. Ekaterina is having the time of her life, swinging that massive hammer around. She sends guards flying like they're made of cardboard. She's a one-woman wrecking crew out there. The human collaborators can't believe how much trouble she's causing. She winds up for another massive swing. A single hit craters the ground and blows the remaining guards back. But then, a heavy footstep stops her in her tracks. The warrior stands over the bodies, thinking she's finished the job. She scoffs at how weak they were. Behind her, two glowing purple eyes cut through the smoke. She senses the sudden shift in pressure and grits her teeth. Lord Incantor strikes, and Ekaterina barely manages to block the blow with her hammer. Ekaterina skids back, the force of the demon's blow leaving a trail in the dirt. She's not scared, though. She's actually grinning because the big boss finally showed himself. Lord Incantor stands tall, looking down on her like she's a minor annoyance. He doesn't say a word, his expression cold and superior. The warrior readies her hammer, but the demon's already figured it out. She's just a decoy meant to keep them busy at the entrance. He actually looks impressed, giving a little smirk at the cleverness of the plan. But he knows that if she's the distraction, the real threat is already inside. He charges up his purple energy, deciding to end this quickly so he can get back to business. Ekaterina braces herself, realizing this guy is on a completely different level. Meanwhile, deep inside the dungeon, footsteps echo through the stone halls. Eldmia EGA and the others are running full tilt, with Jin leading the way to the target room. They round the corner and see a blinding light pouring out from the archway ahead. They skid to a halt at the edge of the chamber. The group finally sees what they're up against. Down below, a massive teleportation portal is pulsing with dark purple magic. One of the mages guarding the room spots them immediately and shouts a warning. Eldmia's eyes widen. He's finally found the demons he's been hunting. It's a full-scale portal gate, the kind used for massive invasions. The boy wonders why they'd build something this big in such a remote place. But he quickly shakes it off. There's no time for questions right now. He leaps into the fray, sword drawn, determined to shut that portal down before it's too late. The hooded mage grits his teeth, furious that their secret project has been discovered. He thrusts his hand forward, a red magic circle glowing with dangerous power. The mage tells them to get lost and unleashes a massive wave of magic. Eldmia is caught right in the center of the activation. He realizes too late that he's jumped straight into a trap. A violent explosion of red light engulfs the entire room, leaving their fate completely in the air. Eldmia walks right into a red magic circle. He's realized he's in a trap way too late. A massive pillar of fire erupts from the ground. The boss mage laughs, thinking he's already won the fight. But a sword suddenly pierces right through the flames. Eldmia is completely fine, protected by a blue mana barrier. The mage is stunned that he managed to deploy a shield that fast. It was Rena's quick thinking that saved him. Eldmia leaps out of the fire, charging the mage before the smoke even clears. The mage panics and tries to push out another spell. Eldmia's sword clangs hard against a hexagonal magic barrier. The blade slides across the purple shield. Eldmia clicks his tongue, annoyed that this guy has a defense too. He spots another threat coming in from his blind spot. A second mage jumps in, ready to blast him with a fireball. Eldmia is caught in a pincer between two magical attacks. But then the stone floor underneath them starts to buckle. Jin bursts through the ground with his pickaxe raised. The fire mage is so shocked he completely forgets his spell. The dwarf mocks him for not expecting an attack from below. He slams the back of the guy's head, taking him out of the fight. The boss mage looks back, horrified to see his backup get flattened. That's all the opening Eldmia was waiting for. He grips his sword and pours mana into the blade. With one clean strike, the purple barrier shatters into pieces. Eldmia lunges forward through the fragments. He lands a heavy punch that sends blood flying. He catches the guy by his head before he can fly back, and slams his skull into the pavement with enough force to crack it. Eldmia hauls the bloodied mage back up by his robes. He demands to know what the hell the gate is for. The guy just coughs up blood and calls him a mere human. Eldmia's eyes go cold. He's clearly losing his temper. Rina runs over, telling him they were nearly too late. She points to the massive swirling vortex of energy behind them. Eldmia decides they should just blow the thing up right now. Rina shouts for him to stop, saying it's far too dangerous. She explains that a gate uses an impossible amount of mana to tear space. It's essentially a magical bomb that's already been primed. If they break it while it's active, the explosion will vaporize everything for miles. Eldmia's face contorts with rage as he realizes they're stuck. He vents his fury by slamming his blade into the floor. Eldmia hauls the bloodied mage up, demanding he tell them how to destroy the gate. The mage just coughs up blood and laughs in his face. Eldmia takes a face full of blood as the cultist spits on him. The mage sneers that there's no way he'd ever tell anything to a mere human. He tells them to just sit tight and wait for the day they are all subjugated. Eldmia covers his face, trying to suppress the absolute rage boiling inside him. The mage cackles, mocking their helplessness against the coming storm. Eldmia snaps and starts raining down a brutal barrage of punches. His fists are a blur as he pummels the man into the ground. He screams at the piece of trash to spit out the answer right now. He slams the guy's head into the pavement over and over again. Rina can only watch, horrified by the sheer intensity of his violence. He hauls the broken body back up, demanding to know why they built the gate. Eldmia is screaming at the top of his lungs, his voice full of pain. He flashes back to the day his world was destroyed, sitting alone in a burning village. He bellows, "Answer me," as if he's demanding an explanation for his entire life. Rina and Jin finally step in, physically prying his hands off the mage. Eldmia is still struggling, his face twisted into a mask of pure fury. Jin stares at him, concerned that his friend is losing himself to the darkness. Eldmia starts to breathe heavily, the red haze finally beginning to lift. He stands over the mangled cultist, his body still shaking with adrenaline. He curses under his breath, realizing his rage just ruined their best lead. Rina quietly points out that the interrogation became way too emotional. Suddenly, the heavy sound of footsteps echoes from the hallway. They all turn as a silhouette slowly emerges from the darkness. The figure dragged the body with cold indifference. Rina's eyes go wide as she feels the overwhelming aura of the intruder. A hand is dragging someone by their long red hair across the stone floor. Eldmia stares in disbelief as the figure steps into the light. He sees the shock of red hair and feels his heart drop. He remembers asking Ekaterina if she'd really be okay holding the rear alone. She'd told him to stop worrying and focus on the enemy ahead. She'd promised to join them in no time with a confident grin. But now, Lord Incantor is standing there, dragging her limp body like a trophy. He looks at them with glowing purple eyes, his voice dripping with disdain. He says that in the end, she was no match for him anyway. Eldmia roars in a blind fury and lunges at the demon with his sword. He screams, demanding to know what the monster did to his friend. Incantor catches the charge with ease, holding Ekaterina up by the throat. Eldmia is forced to stop his swing, his face pale with horror. The demon tosses her aside like a piece of garbage. Eldmia immediately charges back in, his body wreathed in a surge of purple mana. Eldmia dives and catches Ekaterina, shielding her body with his own as they hit the ground. He calls out her name, his voice thick with concern, but she remains limp and unresponsive. His blue eyes sharpen with a cold, predatory focus as he senses Lord Incantor's follow-up attack. Lord Incantor is already upon him, his fist wreathed in a crackling purple energy. Unable to dodge while holding Ekaterina, Eldmia braces himself and takes the punch directly to the face. The sheer force of the blow blasts him through a stone pillar, sending a shockwave through the courtyard. Dust billows into the air, obscuring the impact site as pieces of masonry rain down. Lord Incantor stands still, his eyes narrowed as he waits for the dust to settle. To his shock, a single boot plants itself firmly among the rubble, steady and unyielding. Eldmia rises from the debris, still cradling Ekaterina in his arms as if she were weightless. Blood trickles from his forehead and mouth, but his expression remains terrifyingly calm. "Color me surprised," Lord Incantor muses, his interest piqued by the human's resilience. He wonders how Eldmia is not only conscious but seemingly unfazed by an attack of that magnitude. The demon senses a shift in the air, noting a strange, ominous aura beginning to bleed out of Eldmia. He realizes that the boy's mana is fluctuating in a way that defies logic. His thoughts are cut short by a sudden, sharp sound cutting through the wind. Instinctively, Lord Incantor jerks his head to the side as a heavy object zips past his ear. A pickaxe was smashed to pieces by him. A pickaxe, he mutters, momentarily distracted by the crude choice of weaponry. Above him, a brilliant golden magic circle snaps into existence, illuminating the darkened hall. A pillar of concentrated mana beams down, striking the demon squarely in the back. He was completely caught off guard by the consecutive attacks, his brow furrowing as the smoke cleared to reveal his new enemies. Rina is standing a short distance away, her staff held high as she maintains several complex spells. Die, she screams, her voice echoing with a fury that matches Eldmia's own. She unloads a volley of mana bolts, creating a beautiful but deadly light show in the courtyard. Lord Incantor weaves through the projectiles, his movements a blur of silver and dark silk. He closes the distance to the mage, deciding that she is a higher priority target for now. I'll take out the pesky mage first, he thinks, his hand already forming a claw of dark energy. Rina watches him approach, a faint, confident smile appearing on her face. Lord Incantor realizes too late that she wanted him to get closer. Suddenly, the earth beneath his feet ruptures as a pair of strong hands reach up. Jin bursts from the ground, grabbing the demon's ankle with a grip like iron. The dwarf looks up with a grin, his eyes reflecting the magic light from above. The sudden anchor throws the demon noble off balance, pinning him right in the line of fire. Lord Incantor's eyes widen as he looks up into the heart of Rina's next spell. Rina has channeled all of her remaining mana into a single, devastating blast. Take this, she bellows, releasing the stored energy in a blinding flash. The courtyard is consumed by an explosion of holy light that scours the ground where the demon stood. Lord Incantor is hurled through the air, his noble coat tattered by the concussive force. He manages to stick the landing several yards away, his boots carving deep grooves into the stone. He skids to a halt, the sound of grinding rock filling the silence of the aftermath. The demon looks up, his expression one of cold, genuine irritation as he realizes the trash might actually bite. Eldmia lunges at Lord Incantor with a roar, his blade wreathed in blue energy. Their magic-enhanced strikes collide in a series of bone-shaking impacts that echo through the stone hall. I knew it. Eldmia snarls, his face sweat-streaked but his resolve remaining ironclad. Lord Incantor watches him with a cold, detached intensity, his glowing eyes tracking every movement. The two engage in a ferocious exchange, sparks flying as steel meets demon-hardened mana. They move across the battlefield in a blur of strikes and parries, neither side giving an inch. Lord Incantor leans into a punch, his speed nearly surpassing the human eye's limit. Eldmia barely manages to deflect the blow with the flat of his blade, his teeth gritted in strain. The demon continues to press his advantage, his every movement calculated and lethal. A sudden burst of mana explodes between them, forcing a momentary break in the onslaught. Lord Incantor is momentarily distracted, sensing a surge of power from the side. That mage, he mutters, his focus shifting toward Rina for the briefest of moments. Across the room, Rina is visibly exhausted but still channeling her magic to support the fight. Eldmia seizes the opening, diving back into the fray with a shout, "Keep your eyes on me." He delivers a lightning-fast strike that cuts through the demon's defenses and slashes across his chest. Lord Incantor coughs up a spray of dark blood, the impact of the blow clearly rattling him. He skids across the stone floor, struggling to regain his footing after the powerful hit. Sensing the end is near, Eldmia puts all his strength into one final, desperate lunge. Gotcha! Eldmia bellows as his sword finds its mark, plunging deep into the demon's side. His triumph is short-lived as he sees a dark, menacing smile spread across the demon's face. Lord Incantor simply grabs the embedded blade, his hand tightening around the cold steel without flinching. He begins to laugh, a chilling sound that echoes through the courtyard as he mocks the kingdom dogs. In that case, I'll go all out too, the demon declares, a massive surge of power beginning to build within him. His fist erupts with an unstable, violent aura of dark mana, signaling a terrifying escalation in his power. Lord Incantor's muscles start rippling as a massive purple aura erupts from his body. He's bulked up to twice his original size, declaring that he's finally done holding back. Eldmia EGA can feel the pressure mounting as the demon mocks them for forcing his hand. The monster's eyes glow with a manic light as he promises to slaughter every last one of them. A memory flashes back to training strikes hitting a straw dummy with explosive force. A younger version of the hero was going all out, pushing his limits even back then. He stops to catch his breath when a familiar voice suddenly calls out to him. Acilia Endorinia isn't happy at all, demanding to know what he thinks he's doing. The teacher looks genuinely worried, explaining that he was using raw magic power instead of refining it into aura. She compares raw magic to boiling, molten metal. It's unstable and incredibly dangerous to handle. Aura is supposed to harden that energy like steel, protecting the user's body while they fight. Mana is meant to materialize the mind's intent, drawing in elements to change their form. She warns him that using raw power is like wrapping boiling iron directly around his own body. Even a little bit could leave him permanently injured, but the boy just shrugs it off. He casually mentions he's been doing it that way for years, leaving the elf completely stunned. Instead of being scared, he thinks the idea of having a molten iron body sounds pretty badass. The student asks her what's wrong when she suddenly goes silent. Acelia knows that raw magic should only belong to 2 specific races, and humans aren't one of them. He's curious now, wanting to know exactly which races she's talking about. Acelia doesn't give him an answer, her expression tightening with a secret she isn't ready to share. She just pats his head and tells him to focus on training, promising they'll talk about it later. The boy watches her walk away, frustrated that he's being left in the dark. She whispers to herself that he'll find out eventually if his goal stays the same. Back in the present, Incantor is looming over him like a mountain of pure demonic muscle. Eldmia realizes the truth. This demon is using that same dangerous, raw magic power. Incantor doesn't give him any time to think, lunging forward with a savage grin. He throws a massive punch that shatters the hero's sword like it's made of glass. Eldmia's eyes widen as he barely manages to avoid getting his head taken off. But the demon is too fast, following up with a heavy blow that connects right with his face. The force is insane, slamming the guy headfirst into the stone floor. The impact sends a massive shockwave through the entire area. One more kick. His body skips across the dirt like a stone over water. He spits out a mouthful of blood, his teeth gritted in pure frustration. He struggles to pull himself up while his body screams at him to stay down. Rina screams his name, her face pale with terror as she watches her ally fall. Incantor shifts his focus, his predatory gaze locking onto the mage instead. The demon's hand pulses with that unstable purple energy once again. He charges at her with a lethal slash, moving like a total blur. Rina manages to throw up a mana barrier just in time to catch the strike. But it's not enough. The barrier shatters instantly under the overwhelming power. The girl is sent tumbling backward, her defense completely blown away. Suddenly, a boot slams down on the pavement, wreathed in that same dangerous aura. Lord Incantor leaps into the air, his purple aura flaring as he closes the distance with terrifying speed. The ground beneath his feet instantly transformed as the old dwarf popped up to rescue the female mage. His eyes glow with a cold, murderous light, completely fixated on his next victim. Jin tried to intervene, but the aura swirling around the demon's body completely nullified the damage from his attack. Though unharmed, Incantor was pushed back a short distance. He glared around angrily as his successive attacks kept getting interrupted. He scanned his surroundings, but the old dwarf had already vanished beneath the earth. But right at that moment, the ground beneath his feet began to stir. Jin refuses to stay down, jumping back into the fray with his pickaxe raised high for a desperate strike. But the dwarf's eyes go wide when he realizes he's just walked right into a trap. Incantor just grins at the effort, looking like a predator that's finished playing with its food. With a single, casual kick, he sends Jin flying backward like a ragdoll. Another explosion rocks the area, throwing up a thick cloud of dust and debris. The entire party is scattered across the stone floor, broken and unable to find the strength to stand. Eldmia EGA grovels in the dirt, blood dripping from his face as he realizes just how outclassed they are. Lord Incantor raised his hand, purple energy crackling between his fingers as he released his subordinate. He turns to his minions, coldly ordering them to focus on completing the gate. A massive swirling vortex of purple mana roars to life, threatening to swallow everything in the area. Eldmia grits his teeth, the taste of blood in his mouth only fueling his growing desperation. He looks up at the monster, trying to figure out any possible way to stop someone this powerful. But in a split second, the mana on the demon's hand began to turn unstable. The demon let out an annoyed click of his tongue. Clearly, using raw mana was already backfiring. His gaze sharpens as he focuses every bit of his remaining strength. A memory of his teacher, Acelia Endorinia, flashes through his mind, specifically her warning about the nature of raw magic. A wild, almost manic grin spreads across his face as he realizes the demon's fatal flaw. He digs his heel into the stone, ready to launch himself forward for a final, desperate charge. Incantor looks genuinely confused for a moment, wondering why this kid is still trying to fight. With a defiant roar, Eldmia sprints toward the demon, leaving a trail of dust in his wake. Incantor just scoffs, calling him a foolish brat and preparing a strike that will end this for good. But Eldmia has a trick up his sleeve, throwing a handful of sand directly into the demon's glowing eyes. While the monster is momentarily blinded, Eldmia leaps high into the air, clearing the demon's reach. Incantor stumbles back, his face covered in grit and his vision completely clouded. Eldmia reaches for his blade, his movements fluid despite the injuries covering his body. He lands squarely on the demon's massive shoulders, securing his grip like a mad dog. He drives his weapon home, blood spraying across the courtyard as he finally draws the monster's blood. Lord Incantor lets out a guttural scream of pain, his cold composure finally shattering. Eldmia leans in close, whispering that the demon's power is nothing but a bloated, unstable mess. He mocks the monster, pointing out that even a demon has a limit to how much magic power their body can hold. His fist glows with a blinding intensity as he prepares to pour his own raw mana into the demon's body. Eldmia's eyes are wide with a manic triumph. He's about to turn the demon's own biology into a ticking time bomb. A sickening spray of blood erupts as the internal pressure begins to tear the demon apart from the inside. Lord Incantor's face is twisted in pure terror, screaming for the boy to get away as his own power consumes him. Eldmia EGA lets out a primal scream, refusing to release his hold as he continues to flood the demon with every ounce of his power. Lord Incantor's face twists in a mixture of agony and pure hatred as he realizes the boy isn't backing down. The demon's hand begins to glow with a blinding purple light as he prepares a final, desperate counterattack. With a roar of defiance, Lord Incantor unleashes a massive blast of energy, turning Eldmia's own magic back against him in a devastating explosion.